Thanks for joining me for a new moon and Mercury retrograde forecast. Now, these are both taking place in this particular week ahead, starting on Monday, the 25th of November, taking us all the way through to Sunday, the 1st of December. Now, both of these events are happening in the sign of Sagittarius, which is not unusual for this time of year because we are in the Sagittarius season now. But what's interesting, I think, is this is the third very, very fiery Mercury retrograde of this year. And also all of the Mercury retrogrades of next year are also in fire signs. So there is an ongoing theme of reimagining with a sense of inspiration. Now, there's lots of other patterns going on as well. And in this short forecast, what I'm going to do in the first part of this video is explore the overarching pattern. So there'll be a big section about Mercury retrograde. There'll be a big section about the new moon and so on and so forth. In the second part, I'm going to be doing a sign by sign forecast where I'll be giving you a new moon and Mercury retrograde forecast all at the same time. Now, you can use your zodiac forecast if you want to listen into your ascendant or your sun. Predominantly, that's what most people use them for. You know, I do hear of people using them to listen into their moon sign as well. If you do that, just listen to it and think, okay, this is more of an emotional, soul-based forecast for me. So there you go. I hope that's helpful. Before I get going, my name's Louisa Tanner Munson, and this is For Good Astrology. The whole purpose of this is to create a bit of space to get a sense of freedom and clarity. That's what I really stand for. And it's a real Sagittarius theme. I am a Sagittarius myself. So I guess that really comes through in the readings that I share on a weekly basis. Now, if you've come back here, you've been here before, thank you so much for returning. I love that the community is growing. And in fact, before I go any further, I just want to thank everybody who is helping to support this channel with your financial donations, whether it's on a monthly basis or where you buy me a coffee and this, that, and the other. If you are also considering donating with a coffee, buy me a coffee, for instance, then just go down into the show notes and you'll see a little link to do that. But anyway, let's get on with this show and the overall forecast. So the first thing I want to cover in the first part of this video is absolutely to give a rundown of where the moon is in this week ahead and what it's building to. It's interesting that I'm saying what it's building to because right now we're in a waning phase. So actually the moon is getting smaller rather than getting bigger and building. It's kind of reducing. We're in a waning phase and we're at the sort of real end of the cycle. You know, we're at the part where the moon is getting very, very slim and small. And so this is a time I always think when we don't have quite as much energy, when we're not so as outgoing as usual, and also where we might not feel quite so light. You know, we are coming into a rest. We are coming into a repose. I think it's also a time where we're giving things up. You know, we're letting go of some of the things that have captured our attention over the previous 2 weeks. You know, it's time to let go of things that have been bothering us and find ways to come back into ourselves, you know, come back to zero. And I say zero very purposefully because obviously when we come to the new moon on Sunday the 1st, you know, the moon appears to have disappeared, you know, because obviously we're in that new moon phase. So it's in that complete darkness. It's in that complete nothingness that something new emerges, you know. So what I really think in my life, I think, is that life abhors or nature abhors a vacuum, you know. So it's like we're letting go, letting go, letting go. The moon is letting go, so to speak. And then out of the, you know, the vanishing, something new arises. So it is like the passing away of one phase and the starting of a new. So in this week ahead, one of the things you might choose to do is to, you know, think about what new seeds you're wanting to plant. You know, what mental, spiritual, physical seeds are you wanting to pay attention to in this next phase, in this next lunar month ahead? Starting from Sunday the 1st, you know. So I think as this is coming into, you know, we're getting closer and closer to the new moon, this is a time to, you know, actively go internally, you know, like go inside to ask yourself, like it's a real inside job this week. And as we're starting this week ahead, the moon it starts off in Virgo, moves into Libra, and it's in Libra for a lot of this week, actually. And of course, that's also about balance. The moon in Libra is very much about harmony, poise, and balance and grace. It's not about being pushy. It's not about being right necessarily. It's about finding that balance. And, when I said it's not about being right, what I really think is the question that comes up a lot is, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And what is the quickest way to happiness? Is it about like digging your heels in, or is it more about just thinking, what would make the biggest difference to me right now? And I think that's the kind of question that's likely to get you into balance much faster than usual. From the 28th, when the moon goes into the sign of Scorpio, and we really are in that sort of darkness, that really dark point of the moon, I think we can go much deeper to a real sort of psychological level, and we might face our own actual darkness. We might realize where we do get pathological, where we do get stuck in these very focused mind patterns, and also where we might be trying to control things in our own life. We might have these belief systems that are really pigeonholing us, and we don't even realize that we have a choice as to what we think. It's almost like it's a done deal, and yet I think at this time you might get that sense that actually you don't necessarily have to go along with all of your old mental patterns. And then Saturday, the moon goes into the sign of Sagittarius. And then again, there is a sort of, I would say lightness, but obviously we're really at the sort of dark end of this moon, So yeah, the sign of Sagittarius is quite light by its very nature, but it's also about release. It's also a little bit known for carelessness. The sign of Sagittarius is absolutely known for being quite casual and quite relaxed and quite easygoing in many respects. It is letting go of things. It's kind of almost not caring. It's not attaching so much energy to something that it has previously focused on. So you might find just at the end, after a couple of days of deep perusal of what's going on, that you might just kind of be like, I kind of want to shrug my shoulders. I want to let go of that heaviness. And so it's, I think it's almost like a blind release. You can't quite see what you're releasing into, but the most important thing is to feel less tight, to feel like you can move around. And that's actually the energy that's bringing us into the new moon. Now, there is going to be a chapter coming up very soon called The New Moon in Sagittarius. So if you want to skip straight there, please do. But what I'm going to go to right now is the day by day forecast. So I'm just going to talk about the energies of every single day and how you might find that, how you might want to use those days in particular. So let's bring up the days then. So Monday the 25th, we've got some moon aspects to Uranus and Neptune, and also Pluto, the North Node. So it's bringing up quite a few things. The trine to Uranus is really wanting us to feel clearer and to move a bit faster. But then the opposition to Neptune brings up a feeling of confusion often and a bit of fogginess. So it's interesting, you're seeking clarity because there is a fogginess. Maybe it's bringing up some of your old fogginess. I always think oppositions are showing us maybe what we're projecting. So you might be feeling a bit unclear because you're not clear in yourself. Like you might feel like things are unclear, life is unclear. It's really a sign to actually look back in, kind of reflect that mirror back to yourself. The moon there, like later on, in a trine to Pluto, is really wanting to transform beyond that. And it makes an opposition to the North Node, so it's connected to the South Node. I think it's reminding you a little bit of the past. So you might be able to see where you've got a little bit unclear in the past, and that might be why you're seeing that in the present right now. The sun is also in a trine with the North Node, which is interesting because that is focusing us towards a solution or towards the future. So I really do think, there is this sort of balance point. You're looking for clarity and harmony, and also looking at the past and the future. The last aspect of the day is the moon in a sextile to Mars, which I think is bringing up a sense of needing to act. So Monday 25th, I do think is quite a reflective time. Some very deep thoughts going on. If you've got some big things to think over, this would be a great time to talk about it with a friend, to mind map, I always do a walk and a talk with myself, where I take myself off on a long walk, or have a good soak in the bath and just don't plan anything else, so your thoughts can arise. They can kind of float up to the surface. Tuesday the 26th is an interesting day because there's not too much going on astrologically, though we've got this lovely trine. I already mentioned this, actually, the sun trine the North Node. It's interesting. One was the true and one is the mean North Node. They come up twice in the ephemeris. But the sun trine the North Node is really getting us focused on our direction and our legacy. Like, what is it we're doing? What's our purpose? And then the moon in a trine to Jupiter is giving us a shot of well-being and a shot of optimism and hope. So it's interesting. There is this kind of hopeful sense of direction that's really, really coming up. Then Mercury also goes retrograde on this particular day at 22 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius. Like I said, there is going to be a section absolutely just about Mercury retrograde in this video. I think it's the next one along. So if you're wanting to go straight there, do. But I will be there in about 5 minutes or so. So I think this is a continuation of the day before. We're quite wistful. Some of the key words I always think come up with Mercury is like we are like the from retrograde. Sorry, I've got kids, hence the phonics. But re, like rewind, reflect, remind, remember, reimagine. We are reorganizing ourselves. In fact, I think I put a word in every one of the following days, if I remember. This is a time to not necessarily be so focused on your future plans. In fact, what you might want to do is actually look at the plans that you've already kind of thought about, and then kind of muse along them, like wander in and out of them, and be kind of playful with them. Don't be too fixed. I think if you're reviewing and revising your thoughts and your plans, but doing it in a more Sagittarian way, which is absolutely about playfulness, philosophy, freedom, truth, and not being so fixed. What you might choose to ask yourself is, where are my plans fixing me in place? Where might my plans bring me to freedom? How can I free myself from my plans? How can I do my plans, but in a more free and spontaneous way? They could be quite helpful questions to help refocus you. So then we go into Wednesday the 27th. I think there's a few triggers coming up. We've got the moon in a square to Venus. I mean, the great thing about the moon aspects is they're fleeting. They're not, they come in and they go out within a few hours, but they still do give a flavor of what's going on. So we've got, the moon in a square to Venus and an opposition to Chiron. That's bringing up a possibility of feeling a little bit alone, feeling a little bit disjointed, feeling a little bit sensitive, a bit vulnerable. So if there's something that hasn't quite healed emotionally, or maybe even physically, if you've pushed yourself to heal a bit faster than you would normally, you might find this gets a little bit ouchy. Something might just kind of get real close and you're like, because you fear that something is going to hurt you in a deep way. The sun is in a trine to Mars. So it's interesting. We've got like this trine North Node, trine Mars. I think the sun is absolutely about our personality and how we're expressing ourselves. Like, what are we here to shine? What are we here to share in the world? And so we are feeling a lot more active, and then we're into sextile to Mercury as well. We're wanting to communicate about it. So I do see this as as a really great part of the week where we're able to take actions and feel quite confident in them. You know, we do feel a lot of confidence with the sun in a trine to Mars. You know, I was talking about it in last week's forecast because it was already coming in. You know, it raises our sense of self-esteem and courage. And I think it really brings up some conviction as well. Here I've put emotional triggers coming up, but getting ready to move on and up. Thursday's an interesting day. This is the one that I think is possibly the more challenging of the week ahead. You know, the moon goes into Scorpio. You know, we're in that sort of like dark phase of the moon. We're already in Mercury retrograde, so we're very, very pensive. Remember, Mercury is also at this time in an opposition to Jupiter retrograde. So there's a lot of stuff coming up. And I did speak about this in last week's forecast. So, you know, there's a lot on the emotional table and sort of soul-based thinking table as well. And then the moon is very internalized. You know, we're absolutely in the sort of tail end of this waning crescent moon. The moon in Scorpio is deep. It's dark. It really wants to be kind of architectural and dig and dig and dig, you know, like not architectural. What's the word? I can't remember the word. You'll be shouting at me, won't you, in the chat room? Who are the guys, not architects, what are they called? The people that go digging in the antiquity, like digging the ruins and stuff. What are they called? Oh my God, I can't believe that's gone from my mind. Never mind. So like there is that sort of energy to sort of dig, a bit like if you've got a scab that keeps healing, you're likely to just like pick it off and give it another good look. Go, oh, didn't realize that was what was going on. So, you know, it can be a bit painful. And then Venus goes into a square with Chiron. You know, and we got a hint of this yesterday with the moon in a square to Venus and also the moon in an opposition to Chiron. But Venus square Chiron is a little bit sore and ouchy as well. You know, effectively, we've got the thing that helps. Sorry, our gas bottles are being changed at the moment. If you can hear a bit of banging around. But anyway, we've got Venus, who is absolutely about our ability to relate to others, in a square to Chiron, which is feeling a little bit protective of ourselves. So we're wanting to relate to others whilst also trying to protect ourselves. Of course, that's going to bring a sense of distance between you and your loved ones and your loved ones and you. So you might be picking up where your loved ones are distancing themselves from you a little bit and vice versa. So it is, I think, we're feeling a little bit, I've put here, feeling alone and blocked in relationships. How can we reconnect? That's the real key, is how can we move beyond that? Like the square to Pluto and also the square to Mars is interesting because Pluto and Mars are also in opposition. If you wanted to know more about that, I released a video last week about Pluto and Aquarius. There's a whole section on Pluto opposite Mars. So yeah, it's a very difficult moon on this particular day. And then that sort of ouchy, painful Venus square Chiron that is reminding us of where we're not connected and also why we got disconnected in the first place. So it's a tentative day. Friday the 29th, I think of this as a sort of practical day. You know, the moon in a trine to Saturn, we're trying to be grown up. Even if we're a bit childish at times, we are trying to be a little bit more grown up, get a few things done. The moon in a sextile to Venus is, you know, we've got no beef. Like we're not, I don't mean like we've got no beef in the fridge. What I mean, I don't know if it's a phrase that carries into other cultures. Sorry, I'm coming from the UK vernacular, but we've got no beef. We've got no attitude necessarily. We're coming from a place of harmony and wanting to be practical, wanting to harmonize. And then Mercury semi-sextile Venus. I don't normally include semi-sextiles in these because they seem a little bit too small. But Mercury and Venus, when they work together, I think are very brotherly and sisterly. You know, there's a sort of free flow of energy. People tend to be quite collaborative and equal, you know, on a solid equal footing, which I really like. So this is a day when we could get quite busy and reorganize. Saturday, again, we're coming right into the tail end of this waning crescent phase. The moon's in an opposition to Uranus, so we might feel a little bit shocked. Suddenly something comes up from our unconscious mind, a deep memory recall. The moon is in a trine to Neptune, so there's a sort of dreaminess about it as well. So maybe something really deep in the unconscious mind and some old imaginations are, sort of coming up. But the moon is in a sextile to Pluto. So whatever is coming up is really leading us towards, finding our power. I think, anything that right now is disabling, anything that comes up and could make you question events or question how you've been, something that kind of shocks you awake, especially if you're remembering it from the past, the sooner you can kind of make sense of it and recognize that you're on a journey and that's just part of your journey and you always have choice. I think that's really, really helpful. That's why I think I've put that we're feeling into power. We can always turn around these shocks, because are you still shocked or have you moved on a bit? What has changed? What has moved about you since you got shocked maybe a week ago, 2 months ago, 5 years ago, like 2 decades ago? Whatever is shocking, we do move beyond things. Time does heal. It doesn't take away the unfairness of maybe what has happened to you in your life, but we do get perspective. And that's something I'm really grateful for, that the wheels keep on turning, we keep moving. There is something really special, I think, about where we grow beyond and grow through some of the painful situations that we've been through. So I do think there's a slight recall. Again, it's because we're in the darker phase of that moon. It is like our unconsciousness is ruling. It's not our conscious mind that gets the rulership right now. It's our unconscious mind is really speaking to us in symbols, patterns, and memories and things like that. We've also got the moon in a trine to the North Node and a trine to Mars. So again, Pluto, North Node, and Mars, that is us feeling into power. The moon changes signs. And then Sunday the 1st, well, it's interesting. Like I said earlier, a couple of times, there will be a very full look at the new moon. I'm also looking at the new moon with dwarf planets and also asteroids, also with Sabian symbols. So give me a good old work through. But the new moon in Sagittarius, I think, is about hope and optimism. It is about a fresh new start. There's something of a dreamer in Sagittarius. I remember years ago when I first started learning about astrology, like 40 years ago now. I remember reading in a book and it might have been like a poll, like out of all the different star signs, which star sign would most people like to be? And back then there was this sort of astrological consensus that most people, if they had the choice, they'd pick Sagittarius because they're kind of relaxed. They're kind of bouncy, stuff happens and they're able to usually find their way forwards. I'm not saying everyone, it's a generalization, but the new moon here is about finding your own truth, finding your own way, finding your own sense of freedom, finding hope. I think when hope comes up, it does help us connect in with being alive. There is something, I don't know, it's like that getting up again. There's something so special about it. I don't know what it is. Is it that we come back into self-trust? Do we realize that, we believe in something else? Is that why we have hope? Because we have a belief that maybe we're not quite done yet. There's more. There's more to our story. And so it just gives us that impetus to put a new foot down and another foot down and to keep stepping forwards. So I like it. Now, it is also reminding us of the overall kind of battles that we might see in our own life or in the world, that it feels like there is a bit of an authority, like a duel of authority. It's like, I don't know, like I've never actually watched Game of Thrones, but like the idea that there are these dynasties or like, it's like Dallas from the 1980s, like Dallas and Dynasty, actually, that's probably why it came to mind. But there are these kind of archetypal programs running in us, like the whole left, right, light and dark, up and down, in and out, and so on and so forth. The moon in a square to Saturn and the moon in an opposition to Jupiter. We're always being asked about our thoughts and feelings about different authority, but I really think the question here is, how are you your own authority? And if that is what comes out the new moon, I'd be so happy. I think it's great. Now, I do know that the new moon has a lot of energies around it, and that's why I've put in time to pivot. Is there a pivot point coming up? I think there is. So that's the look through the weekly energies on a day-by-day basis. Now let's have a look more at Mercury retrograde. So Mercury retrograde starts on the 26th of November. It's actually going to take us through to the 15th of December. So what happens is, I don't know if, hopefully you can see where my cursor is. So, you know, Mercury, like all the planets appear to be going around this way when they're not retrograde. And so Mercury has gone through the sign of Sagittarius, has got as far as 22 degrees 40, and then it stations, like it appears to slow right down and stop. And then it appears to go backwards. Now, it's not going backwards, but that's how it appears to us. And so it's going to go backwards all the way back to 6 degrees 23 in the sign of Sagittarius, and it reaches there on the 15th of December. So it appears to be going backwards until the 15th of December, until it gets to 6:23, and then it stations and goes forwards again. It starts to move forwards. Now, on the 3rd of January 2025, that will be when Mercury gets back to the original place where it went retrograde from. A lot of astrologers, myself included, I think this is a very important moment. We call it getting out of the shadow. Well, that's what I call it. That's what I know it to be. I've just been bought breakfast. How lovely. Thank you. I think whatever we're going through during this like moment in space and time, and by space I'm referring to the astrological zodiacal space between 6 degrees Sagittarius and 22 degrees Sagittarius, whatever is existing in those spaces right now is representing an inquiry, a deeper dive, a need for more information, a need to, well, go through all of those words like rethinking, reimagining, re-envisaging, philosophical positions, the deepest of inquiries, information overload, because Mercury is retrograde to Jupiter. So there's tons coming up. Like I said, there's lots to process, especially the Sagittarius things, which is morality, fairness, truth, the bigger picture. And it's taking us beyond sterile facts. You know, I don't mean to call the sign of Gemini sterile, but, you know, like the cold light of day facts, the yes, no, you know, where there's a question, there's only two possible answers. It doesn't really give us much space for context. And this is what's really going on with Mercury retrograde. You know, Mercury has a time to experience what it's like to find a much bigger picture, where actually the facts aren't actually important, because the facts aren't really moving the conversation on. A bit like earlier in this video, I said, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Now, being right would refer back to the facts. And in some situations, facts are very important. But facts don't always take into consideration the bigger picture and what would actually bring about the most happiness. And so this is what I think is going on right now. Is between this space of 6 and 22 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius, wherever that is showing up in your chart, that is a place where you're being encouraged to look at the bigger picture, like to come out of the usual way of being around information and to see, I don't know, maybe to hear a more belief-based calling, you know, something that's more religious or spiritual, something maybe more philosophical, you know, that's going to move you and maybe move the world, who knows. But this is a very important space. Now, if you've got your ascendant, your sun or your moon in this sign of, in this part of the chart, in this Mercury retrograde space, then it's going to be working on quite a deep level for you. for instance, this is going to incorporate my Mars, my Neptune, and my North Node. So this is going to bring up issues to do with my Mars, which is about how I take action, my Neptune to do with how I take action about spirituality, and my imagination and my creativity. It's also going to touch on my North Node. So I'm going to be rethinking my destiny, my legacy, my direction right now. So, have a look and see where this is interacting in your own chart. Now, if you know how to do that already, that's great. I absolutely recommend that you go to astro-seek.com or www.astro.com, because it's a great place to do your birth chart if you haven't already done it. I'm pretty sure you've done it, right? And at the end, when I'm doing the sign by sign forecasts, I will be talking about this retrograde in the house that it's showing up in, because that's going to be more important in this week ahead and, during this whole retrograde period for you. Here's a couple of things that might help you manage this energy better. Like meditation, I think is quite a good thing in terms of Mercury retrograde, thinking differently, using your mind differently. But I am a Sagittarius that struggles with meditation. So for me, I have to do like an active meditation. In fact, not even really that consciously about it. For me, when I'm doing something where my mind can kind of switch off. So I've mentioned this before. For me, washing up, taking a shower, they're good cleansing moments where my mind kind of shuts down. And then all of a sudden, I'm in a sort of guided meditation of myself, or, I start to feel like I'm channeling. I start to do something. There's a site that I came up that I saw recently. Oh God, what's it called? I can't remember. I need to stop this video and remember what it's called. 1 second. Okay, so I found out what I was recommending as a place to do some kind of active meditation. So the form of writing, like the sign of Sagittarius, has a lot to do with knowledge, and in particular studying at a higher level and to get a much bigger picture. And there's a website called 750words.com, and it encourages you to write 750 words a day, just to go onto the site and just to freeform, just to start the ball rolling, maybe just write a sentence and then just see where it takes you, where you're just in a constant continuous flow. It will analyze how many words, when you get distracted, what kind of voice you're using, etc., whilst you're doing your words. So it actually is quite a useful tool, but it's getting you into a free flow of information, a free form. It's absolutely helping you to get to the deeper stuff. And so I think that kind of tool and other tools like it are really, really beneficial. Really, this Mercury retrograde, I think, is challenging us to open up. I think it's also challenging us not to judge or separate ourselves from each other. It's really kind of expanding our opportunities to think things through, expanding our focus in a different way. And also, the sort of hopeful and optimistic side, I think, is good for the collective. It is absolutely trying to get us to consider things from as many different possibilities as possible, as many different positions as possible. So I think this particular Mercury retrograde is going to be quite helpful. Whilst Mercury is going to go retrograde, it is also going to come into a conjunction with the Sun at some point. I think that's next week. It will also go over the Great Attractor, which I talk about in the next section where I'm talking about the new moon. But the Great Attractor really raises the bar and raises the energy towards understanding information. Right now, because of, Mercury in an opposition to Jupiter, they're both planets about ideas. They're both planets about information and learning. They both have a different kind of approach to it. And so it's like, there's just so much now. How can we filter through it? So yeah, it could be quite overwhelming. And that's why I think it's really important to do these things like having longer discussions, writing to yourself, or you might prefer just recording. There's a great program that I use to record podcasts on called audacity.com. And you can go on there. I've downloaded Audacity to my computer, but just, click play or record, and just start talk about whatever feels relevant and see what happens. Go on a rant if you do. It doesn't matter. It's about moving the information, not making it sit in a particular place, but moving it. And in the moving of the information, that's where the true gold is. So I really think this Mercury retrograde can bring out some inspiration. You might even find yourself doing something like channeling, where you don't even know where that stream of information is coming from. It's just coming straight through you. And actually, I think it's a great place to be. Lots of ideas flow naturally. Now, I did also want to just pay a little bit of attention to Linda Hill's amazing website called SabianSymbols.com. I've had Linda on the channel a couple of times talking about the Sabian symbols. She's got a brilliant sort of Sabian symbol checker. If you go to www.sabiansymbols.com, if you want to see where something starts and where something ends. So I wanted the Sabian symbols for the start of the retrograde and taking us through to the end of the retrograde to get a feel for what other things might be coming up during this particular time. There are 360 different symbols for every degree of the zodiac. So they're all very unique readings. And yeah, it's interesting to see what's coming up on this one. Now, you put in like 22 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius, click enter, find my symbol, and it always rounds it up to the next number. You don't need to round it up yourself. Her website will do that for you. But it's interesting that at the start of this retrograde, and I think this might come up as a really big theme around Tuesday of next week, it says a group of immigrants fulfilling the requirements for entering a new country. So this symbol is showing finding a new way of life or new country or nationality, new place to live and raise a family. It shows the possibility and hope for better things and a new way of life. Whether you're an immigrant or someone looking to move into new territory, you'll need to be prepared to venture out on your new adventures of the promise that's offered. This is a key part of this, I think. Once you've fulfilled the requirements. So I'm wondering how fulfilling the requirements is important at the start and throughout this retrograde. Yet it might have nothing to do with migration. Although, interestingly, I do need to renew 3 passports in my family right now for our children. So interesting. So fulfilling the requirements. You can move into this brand new life and reap the rewards. There may be, you may need to make some adjustments about the way you're communicating your ideas or your thoughts and be receptive to a new way of life, and you'll learn a lot. So this is the thing that's coming up, a reorientation of self, learning new languages or customs, passing tests, asylum, immigration, the Statue of Liberty. That's interesting. I wonder if anything's going to happen around there. Papers, qualifications, refugees, laws and borders. So there is this idea of fulfilling requirements. But I really like this reorientation of self. To me, that's an indication that the self that we know ourselves to be might not be fixed, and I think there is this kind of idea that, I am the way I am. This is it. This is me. It is what it is. We've got all these kinds of phrases in our language, and yet maybe the idea of ourself isn't so fixed. And so maybe this Mercury retrograde is about reorientation, and we can't really do that if we fix our ideas and also fix our, fix where we get our information from, fix who we're talking to, fix our focus. Like when we are focused in one particular way, it's not opening us up for more and more. It's not opening us up to a broader understanding. So I think this is going to be really giving us a lot of extra information, this Mercury retrograde. Now it's going back to, I love this, Cupid knocking at the door of the human heart. So this degree shows the spreading of love and showing how people can love one another. Cupid is knocking, asking to be let in. barriers and defenses around people's hearts may be keeping him from getting in. But how long will they be able to resist? Opening your heart and opening the door will lead to new opportunities and realizations about relationships. What are the true depths of your relationships? Soften your boundaries, unlock your heart, allow your heart chakra to open when you're in caring company. Know when to open the door to allow love in. Keys, arrows, respectful invitation of love, fear of commitment, purity of motive, softening one's boundaries, the need to lighten up one's approach to others, romance. So to me, if you compare these and contrast these and also sort of mix these together, what this is saying to me is if we are reorienting ourselves and considering a lot more information and broadening what we know, how we know it, and who we're having conversations with, it's opening ourselves to greater connection. It's reconnecting ourselves to more people, that we're able to see more people as brothers and sisters, that we come more into alignment with people during this Mercury retrograde. So I really love that. And obviously, if you are single as well, this could be also very interesting, seeing as there's something to do with the human heart and Cupid. It's showing that barriers and defenses around hearts are keeping other people out. It's a resistance to connect to people. So yeah, I really, really love this. Let's move on and have a look at the new moon then, that is on the 1st of December at 6:21 a.m. That's London, UK time. So if you wanted to put it into your own time zone, I recommend going to timeanddate.com and going to the sun and moon tag, if that's how it's still organized. And if you go down to moon phases, it will bring up all the phases of the moon. Well, actually 4 of the phases of the moon, and it will have the times of all the new moons and the full moons. And it will bring it up in your time zone, according to where your local computer is or your telephone at that moment in time. So just check that out. It's a really great resource. It's really good as well if you want to check out the eclipses and also the times of the season changes, i.e. the solstices and the equinoxes. So I use this site a lot. It's great for also sorting out international meetings and sorting out your time zones. But anyway, on this new moon, so again, I've set this chart up for 6:21 a.m. in London, but I'm not really going to talk about the angles. I just really want to see this particular moon. Now, this moon is in a square to Saturn, and it's also in an opposition to Jupiter. So the opposition to Jupiter, whereas Mercury in opposition to Jupiter, which I was just talking about, is bringing so much information up. So Mercury on his own brings up a lot of information, especially in the sign of Sagittarius. But in opposition to Jupiter, Jupiter maxes it out. Jupiter's in Gemini, which absolutely loves information and facts and connections and lots of people. So there's a lot of busyness going on because of Jupiter in the opposition to this new moon. So you might find that this new moon is bringing a lot of other people's business into your life. It's bringing a lot of the outer world into your inner world. And you might be thankful for it. You might not. You might also feel that there is this almost like this divine energy kind of forcing you to expand right now. And you might just not want to expand. So it might feel like an outer authority trying to get you to lift up, expand, sort yourself up, pull your socks up, turn your frown upside down, and this, that, and the other. And you don't have to participate in that if you don't want to. Absolutely not. So yeah, Jupiter is in opposition to this particular new moon. It's in a very, very wide opposition. So again, it's bringing a lot up, but you don't have to take it seriously. It's also in a square to Saturn. So it also, to me, it's showing that there are some tensions around needing to do things in a particular way. So you might be ready to do a bit of a new start. You might be doing a reboot, a reset. You might be really feeling excited to look at life from a different perspective, and yet also feeling the pressure to do it in a particular way, against a particular time, to a particular standard, almost like it's a smart new moon, like smart, like specific, measured. I can't even remember all of the different acronyms in SMART now, all the different words within it. Timed, recorded. What's the A? I can't remember. Maybe you can write it down in the comments for me. But yeah, to me, it feels like you probably just want to do your new start and reset yourself in the way that works for you, and not feel the outside interference from everyone else. Again, that's a real Sagittarian thing, like running to the hills if you feel like you're being controlled. The Sagittarius sign doesn't want to be controlled. It just wants the space to make its own decisions. And the more likely you are to pressure a Sagittarius, the less responsibility you're going to get from them. You know, if you really want to help a Sagittarian make up their mind or be the best they can be, you really need to give them space to work it out for themselves. They're a bright bunch. They don't need, you know, to be actually they can. It could be quite useful to micromanage them, but it's not helpful for them as a person to put that on them. So yeah, you might be feeling a little tight and wanting to shut the world out and to ignore experts around you. Fair enough. Other aspects going on, again, you know, Mercury's also in a square to Saturn and in an opposition to Jupiter. So we've been talking about that already. There is a trine between Mercury and Chiron, which I think is quite helpful. There is this feeling of a healing vibe, a healing narrative, which I think is helpful. There's also a conjunction between or a stellium, where, you know, you get three or more things in a conjunction together. They're like in a daisy chain. So the Venus is connected to dwarf planet Ceres, connected into Pluto. So their energies are kind of working together. So Venus is a sort of feminine energy, a yielding energy, a connecting, flowing, harmonious energy. Ceres about taking responsibility, being like an earth mum, nurturing. So there's this kind of nurturing, yielding energy that's giving way to a deeper power. You know, I think when we do care for each other, this is reminding me of something that Chuck Spezzano says about leadership. He's worth checking out. One of my go-to places, if ever I get a little bit, if ever I feel a little bit overwhelmed, sometimes I go to a website. It's Chuck Spezzano's, I think it's called Psychology of Change. But if you do a search for Chuck Spezzano 3-card reading, and it will bring up an opportunity. So you think about what you want to think about, click to get your cards, and it will bring up 3 cards from his Psychology of Change, I think it's called, but it will bring up his special cards, and they're really, really helpful. But he talks about leadership on one of his cards, and on his cards, he talks about leadership as being something that we enter into heaven 2 by 2. You know, that to really lead, we have to be working with other people. And if something doesn't feel right for us, the quickest way for us to, and I'm paraphrasing here, but the quickest way for us to get back to ourselves is actually to help another person. So if you're in a quandary, you're not sure what to do, you know, according to Chuck Spezzano, the next best thing you can do is think, who around me needs help right now? It's not so that you are broken and you break somebody else. That's not the idea, but it's almost that you connect back into purpose. You connect into the purpose of being human. So when I've been sort of overwhelmed with my own problems, but considered that there might be somebody around me that's suffering more, it's actually taken me outside of my problems. It's taken me to a place of caring and empathy. It's not to tell you off. It's to make you realize you're connected to others who are suffering, and that, you know, it's a normal human condition. And one of the normal human conditions is to care for people. I really believe that strongly. And so it reactivates your caring. It gets you back in your body. It gets you back to yourself. I'm really grateful for having read that. You know, it really resonates with me. And each time I practice it, it gets easier and easier. The sooner you start helping somebody else, the quicker you fall out of your problems. You get a different perspective. So I find that quite helpful. So to me, Venus, Ceres, Pluto is really helping us to, you know, get back on track quite quickly and to come into our own sense of nurturing power. There's also Neptune in a conjunction to the North Node, which I think It's going to be getting stronger and stronger from here on in. But these two together is bringing up a real sort of need for spirituality right now. There is a real sort of deep questing to know what's really going on, to know what life is about. All of the big questions that you might have unanswered are coming up for humanity right now. So this is an aspect of the new moon. Funnily enough, that new moon is on. I've actually got Neptune. My tightest aspect in my birth chart is Neptune in a conjunction to the North Node. I have always wanted to know about all of the unknowable things. And so this new moon is right on there. But unknowable things, making sense of the fact that we can't know everything, and that we live in a world that is maybe not as it seems, and also that we live in a world that is dreamy and spiritual, and maybe not like this flesh and blood and kind of solid world that we live in. It's bringing up a whole different set of considerations. So this is quite a dreamy new moon. That's one of the themes. It's helping us see a whole new perspective. So I want to go deeper now with the asteroids. Now, I always look at asteroids at the time of the new and full moon. There's a website called serenu.com, SERENNU.com. You put in the time, place and date of the new moon or your birthday or whatever, and click go, and it will bring up a whole heap of asteroids. I always find it useful to see which are working with the new moon or your sun or your moon, to give an extra bit of color. Now, Urania is a really interesting asteroid. She's one of the 9 muses. I really like Urania. I sometimes put her into the charts of astrologers to see where she shows up. She is a muse of astrology and astronomy and the bigger picture. She can conceptualize. She looks past small things to the much bigger picture. She's quite rational, but also wanting to see how everything connects. So she's rational, but also wants to know what's behind it all. So there is a very strong what is behind everything. What is the whole purpose here going on at the time of this new moon? Another theme, which is interesting, Hybris, the goddess who was a little bit arrogant and impudent. She was really proud of herself. She was quite foolish, really. I guess it's about hubris. I think that's where we get our word hubris from. So there is, with this new moon, anywhere where you feel like you've got false pride, a self-perception of grandeur, and a lack of restraint, you might want to be a bit cautious about that. So that might be another theme that comes up. You might realize that you've held on to a belief, or that, you go into a state during this time where all of a sudden you've got this kind of very strong attraction to what you're talking about, and then go, oh, that was, false pride, so it comes up. So just watch out for that. It's one of the, one of the things that might come up. Like looking at both of these, like Urania, she looks at the different facts. She wants a bigger picture. And so she's always expanding her knowledge and looking, like she looks at quite a few different sciences like astrology, astronomy, and mathematics and things like that, patterns. And she's got a lot of different modalities that she uses at the same time. She's informing herself from a place of breadth. But with this Hybris, what I really get is that they are focused on one thing and making it have more meaning. So again, there's another sort of message, which is very much similar to the Mercury retrograde right now. So it's funny, isn't it, that there are the new moon and the Mercury retrograde have similar themes, but there's this real sort of be very careful about the things you're zoning in on rather than having a broader view. Now, there's a couple of other things that aren't asteroids, and I've connected with a couple of pals who have studied. So you might have noticed that I did an interview with a dwarf planet expert, Alan Clay. Well, I checked in with one of Alan Clay's students, Amanda Johnson, who I've spoken to before. So Gong Gong is a dwarf planet that is coming up. And, you know, one of my understandings about Gong Gong is it's about turning points. In fact, Alan and I, after we were chatting earlier this week, he looked at Gong Gong in my chart and was telling me about it. But it brings about a sudden burst of insight, and it kind of shakes things up and creates a new worldview. The theory of Gong Gong, or the look of Gong Gong, it's based on a mythology about a snake with a, like, I think a human head with red hair. But that's the character. But I'm just going to quickly go ahead to what Amanda shared with me about Gong Gong. So it's an empathic consciousness, the water god of deep, deep connection to all around. One can give yourself away, and if areas of emotional debris are triggered, rage can show where emotions haven't been integrated. So again, you know, like a turning point sort of energy, a turning point that can shatter your worldviews. It's bringing up something at a very, very deep level of emotional debris that can bring up rage and anger. She's also said heightened emotional intelligence. I think they were Alan's words. She put that in a little note. To be able to walk a mile in another's shoes encourages us to delve into our emotional consciousness. Rather than lifting us up above others, we can channel physical, spiritual, and higher conscious levels, giving us insights. Again, there's the idea of us having a greater level of empathy, you know, that we're not judging or separating ourselves from each other, that we're not playing into sides, that we're making a choice focused on the overall good for the collective, not good for people that agree with me. You know, again, it's going back to that question of, do you want to be right or happy? So, you know, it's really helpful, isn't it, how the planets, the asteroids, the dwarf planets are all sharing a very similar message at the moment. If we are flooded and overwhelmed, then our connection is interrupted. Well, that's very true at this moment with Mercury retrograde in opposition to Jupiter retrograde. You know, these two are overwhelming us. If clear, we're in touch with the spiritual world. In each house, it's quite a different story how he operates. Dark and light boundaries are very much needed. So that's what Amanda's shared. Now, the thing with Gong Gong is it's down here in a conjunction with Saturn. It's not in a conjunction with this new moon. It's in a square. So to me, it's showing us how our new starts in consciousness get harder. So it might be an image that it's getting harder when we're overly emotional, when we are absolutely fixed on what we're saying, and also that the emotional debris of what comes up might be one of the things that makes our new moon and our new starts a bit harder, i.e. like where rage can show up. It's also saying, you know, when we can walk a mile in another's shoes, it encourages us to go into a deeper consciousness. So with this square to Gong Gong from the new moon, to me, what that's implying is we're struggling to go a mile in each other's shoes. So to me, that is the medicine. Like, how can we go a mile in each other's shoes? Because we're going to get some sudden bursts of insight. It could shake us. It could shatter our world view. So it's interesting. Now, the other thing that is also in this space is the Great Attractor. Now, galacticmystic.com described the Great Attractor as a mysterious galactic anomaly. It pulls you in, it's a bully, it's a seductor, a wild ride, impossible to resist, unknowable. Well, I thought I'd also check in with my lovely friend Tressa Murray from Goddess Inspire. So here's what she sent me when I dropped her an email. She said, the Great Attractor is going to make sure that this new moon is a powerful one for us, as it's immensely powerful electromagnetic energy. The Great Attractor sits at 14 degrees Sagittarius, and it's a massive, immensely powerful gravitational anomaly in space. It has so much, it pulls and draws thousands of surrounding galaxies towards it, including our own Milky Way galaxy. People can't see it, but feel this gravitational pull. So it's like this secret pull that you're always feeling, like this kind of like maybe a pull to a collapse. You know, it's pulling something to change and transform, and it's something that we have no power over. It's like an unknowable power. She's also shared, and I double checked it just to make sure, and I needn't have done that because Trass was absolutely spot on, but I just wanted to make sure I got the midpoint right. She said the great attractor, thank you, is at the midpoint between Mercury and the new moon, suggesting a very powerful time, a pivotal time. And it really is at the midpoint between Mercury retrograde and the new moon. So the great attractor, it has strong views, especially when being overloaded with info, because Jupiter's in Gemini. Turning off the news would be advisable, going out in nature or listening to music, anything that raises your frequency. So let's kind of go back to this. It is a force that's powerful, pulling in the energies of Mercury retrograde. So like the overstimulation from Mercury and Jupiter in opposition, and the retrograde. So it's an overstimulation and a deep need for reflection. So that's kind of being pulled and pulled and pulled and kind of made a bit more important than it is. And the new moon, which is about hopeful new start, and you know, the idea that we're trying to see things as openly as possible, that is becoming more important with this great attractor. Trass also says for people who want to dive deeper, she would suggest they look at their opposing house and see how it's playing out for them. So when I look at the sign by sign forecast, I will look at the sign of Gemini to see how what is going on in opposition is really adding into what's going on in the sign of Sagittarius. It's really, really deep. So yeah, this new moon, it is quite insightful. It's shaking us. It's shattering our worldview. It's taking us on a wild ride. It feels like we can't really miss all this information. It's like there is something unknowable that needs to be known. And our best way of dealing with it is to be as broad in our appreciation of information as possible. Last thing that I want to share then, and that is the Sabian symbol for this particular new moon. A theatrical representation of a golden-haired goddess of opportunity. Okay, so rewards, awards, acclaim, a sense of presence, charisma, and beauty are all the promise of this degree. There will be offers that look too good to refuse, and they could be full of promise, but they should still be looked at carefully. It can be something of a reward for you, in which case it can lead to bigger and better things. You or someone close to you can be seen as someone who can totally succeed, a natural talent. It may seem to be the answer to your dreams, and indeed, it may turn out to be a grand adventure with a big reward. However, be aware of idle chatter with no basis in reality. Distinguishing reality from theatre, feeling that the world is your stage, playing out a story, acting on impulses, dramatizations, opportunities that seem too good to resist. Again, there's this idea of things, where was it? Impossible to resist. The great attractor. So what I'm really getting with this new moon is it could really bring up these new talents. It's bringing everything into focus. When you bring everything up and you check it out, you might get a memory recall of something, that you hadn't remembered. You'd lost that memory, you'd forgotten about it, but it might be your natural talent. So this particular position of the new moon is about optimism, hope, an opportunity, a story coming from this opportunity. So yeah, absolutely explore it to your heart's content. Hey there, Aries. So this is a new moon and also Mercury retrograde forecast, because they're both happening in the week ahead. And I'm really talking about the week starting on the 25th of November, taking us right the way through to Sunday, the 1st of December. I always think that new moons, and full moons, in fact, they have a much longer life than just the week. They obviously happen in that moment, and the degree of that new moon is quite an important degree until the full moon comes along. I think from full to new and new to full, I think they're very, very special degrees. But in this particular forecast, what I'm looking at is really the scope of where Mercury retrograde is going to be going. It starts here at 22 degrees all the way back to 6 degrees. That's on the 15th of December, and it will eventually shift forwards. So yeah, how is that going to manifest for you? What kind of things are going to be brought up? Remember, if you've seen the forecast from last week, you'll remember that Mercury is in an opposition to Jupiter retrograde, really bringing up a lot of overstimulation for sure, and putting a lot of different topics, maybe on your radar. So it's quite intense. And then the new moon on the 1st of December is at 9 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius. Also, this Mercury retrograde is actually going to go beyond the new moon's position, and then it will work its way back from there. So this is a very, very important time. If you've got anything in the sign of Sagittarius, or in particular Gemini, between like around 6 degrees, 9 degrees, or 22 degrees, they're going to be really quite sensitive points in your chart. You'll really, really feel it. What I like about this from your perspective as an Aries is that where this Mercury retrograde and also new moon in Sagittarius is taking place is in this part of adventure. Like this part of your chart where the sign of Sagittarius resides is all about the great adventure. It's all about making things much bigger, more expanded, a lot more fun. What you're really looking for here is freedom, freedom in your physical body, but also freedom of your spirit, your soul, and the way you're thinking. I really get the freedom of your mind and the expansion of it. I see this Mercury retrograde is, it has the potential to broaden your viewpoints already. It's not to say that you need to do a 180, like turn on anything, or a 360 turn on any of your thoughts. Obviously, a 360 degree turn would actually bring you back round to where you started. So a 180, it's not to say that you need to change your mind necessarily. I don't think anyone needs to do that at the moment, but it's that open invitation to see things from a new perspective. Now, if you're interested in knowing a lot more about Mercury retrograde and also new moon in Sagittarius, I've completed much bigger analysis of them back earlier in this particular video, in particular with Sabian symbols, and also with asteroids in as well. So that's also worth a good look. But this is really a time, in particular in this week ahead, but ongoing from that, really for the next few weeks, really what I'm seeing is this very strong need to run, to explore, and to be yourself. The new moon in particular, which we're sort of all the way through the week, we're letting go of what we know, letting go of our experience, quietening our mind, coming into ourselves. And, as we're reflecting more, I think, it's bringing up this sense of, okay, I need space. I need a lot of space to be able to move, to run, to escape in some cases, and to feel completely free. I really need my ability to move. And of course, anywhere where we're boxing ourselves in, we're not free to assume new information or new perspectives or a level of hope. This part of the chart is traditionally a place of hope and optimism for you, a place where you're also lucky. Luck is something that isn't really, hasn't been spoken about for a while. I haven't really heard many people saying they're feeling lucky at the moment. But luck is something I think that really comes from a generated space of possibility. So yeah, this is a time of great openness and transparency for you, where you're really wanting to move beyond what you or like where you already are. Now, to go even deeper on this, here's how it's not manifesting. Like Jupiter down here in your third house, it's retrograde, it's giving you quite an internalized experience of the community around you right now. Maybe you're getting an experience that people are kind of turned inwardly. They're exploring things kind of frenetically within the local environment, and possibly going to town with facts, going overboard with that. Like Jupiter encourages this. It just expands everything. Sometimes inflames things, but it's very factual. It's almost like a fact fest. And yet really where you feel free is to be in the opposite of that, to be finding meaning and context. So some of the other themes around this is truth, like personal truth, sovereignty, a feeling like you have the ability or permission to do this yourself. Now, there's some other things that are also feeding into this. You know, the sun is also in a trine to Mars, and Mars is really highlighting this part of your chart to do with creativity, to do with love and intimacy, to do with what lights you up, what you're wanting to birth, you know, like where your creative juices are absolutely at their strongest. And so you might find that you are getting inspiration from the things you love doing. Now, I will say later on in December, you know, Mars here is also going to go retrograde, but use this energy, you know, this energy of Mars coming into this part of your chart. And obviously Mars is your ruling planet. You know, Mars is here sort of expressing, you know, you have space now to do what you want to do. You have space now to enjoy the things that you're passionate about, that make life feel like it's a life worth living, you know. And so indulge in this, experience this as fully as you can, you know, which is a freedom, isn't it? You know, like you're not bound, like putting boundaries around your happiness. You're wanting to dive right into the things that feel like give you a passionate feeling in your life. And so I really get that the sun in a trine to Mars in the week that we're also having this new moon in Sagittarius is really increasing your levels of confidence, but natural confidence to follow your joy. Earlier in this video, I was talking about, you know, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Now, Aries, bless you, you know, with your Mars influence, you know, sometimes do, you know, come out as a bit of a, you know, a warrior, you know, where you do want to be right, you want to be fighting for things. But right now, the impetus is absolutely on your happiness, because when you're happy, you're free, you know, and I think it's really hard to be happy when you're not free. You know, you need an element of freedom. You know, I think a lot of us have heard about stories of people being locked up for years and years and years. And instead of getting negative, they actually expanded their world. I mean, they absolutely were able to find freedom in their mind, even if they didn't have freedom in their body or freedom in their lives. So how can you express your life through a greater level of freedom? Right now, you've got the confidence and courage to explore this. So I think this is another sort of area of life it's quite good for you. Something else that's coming up in this week ahead, and is exact on the 28th of November, is Venus in a square to Chiron. Now, this is an interesting one because, you know, Venus in a square to Chiron tends to disconnect us. You know, Venus in the 10th is sometimes quite formal, especially in the sign of Capricorn. You know, Venus is maybe not as friendly as usual. So you might not feel quite so well disposed to people in your business sphere. You might feel a little standoffish. You might be more aware of status around you, how to play the status game and also how to stay separate from it. But it's not really meeting equally. You know, to me, it feels like at the moment for you, from your perspective, when you're meeting people, there is the element of status, the element of separation, and the element of discernment that, you know, isn't really seeking to merge and completely understand people. And with Chiron, which has been going through your sign for flipping ages now, you know, Chiron in that tight square is maybe showing you where you feel a little insecure about not being fully connected to people. So yeah, in this week ahead, I really think the quickest way to connect to other people, funnily enough, is to connect fully to yourself, connect fully to the things that, like I said, light you up, help you feel expanded, connect fully to the idea of your freedom, connect fully to the idea of, you know, what thoughts, what philosophies, what actions help you to feel like yourself. Because when you are yourself, that's when you're really going to be meeting people at the right level, like at a level of openness, at a level of hope, at a level of natural joy. And I think this is the kind of attitude that actually brings in these lucky breaks. You know, those moments in time where just things feel lucky. You're able to kind of hit the nail on the head. You feel like you've got your talent. It just feels like you're in the right place at the right time in the right way. I think that's the thing that's likely to mitigate the feeling of disconnect, where you might be a bit afraid to connect. I think that fear of connecting is really coming from you not being able to connect to yourself. So, I guess to round this up, Mercury retrograde for you this time, I think, is helping you to joyfully bound into greater conversations, greater learning, greater exploration of all the different things that you are noticing in the world. You might choose to be listening, watching, reading. There's a lot of learning going on, and most of your higher thoughts and your higher consciousness are coming really from being out in the world. So the more you're doing that, the easier life gets. It is likely to stir things up for you at a community level. But for you right now, it's important to feel the freedom, not to feel bound by the conditions of the people around you, but to feel expanded by how you're leading yourself. And with the new moon in Sagittarius, which is independent and expressive and hopeful and a little bit careless and carefree, also in a trine with Mars, there is definitely something going on to help you feel more confident. So I hope that's helpful to you, Aries, in navigating the new moon and understanding how you might want to use it for yourself, understanding Mercury retrograde, this current one in the sign of Sagittarius, and also giving you an idea on how you might want to do the week. I heard this earlier, do not play into sides, shift from polarity to unity. I really think this is one of the things that is going on with Mercury retrograde right now. It's so easy to see the sides, and we're seeing them really with this Mercury and Jupiter opposition, but the unity is coming from you exploring life and engaging with life, in a very sort of intimate way. And I really applaud you in that. So have a brilliant one, and hopefully catch up with you real soon. If I can be of any help, then just get in touch. All of my details are below. Lots of love. Hey there, Taurus. So this is a forecast to talk around the idea of Mercury retrograde that is starting this week on the 26th. Also to talk about the new moon in Sagittarius that's happening on the 1st of December, and really how the moon is flowing right the way to that moment of, where the new moon is. And also like talking about some of the kind of other energies that are going on the week starting from Monday the 25th of November, taking you right the way through to Sunday the 1st of December. I think this is, one of the calmer weeks of November. If you saw my November forecast, you'll know what I'm talking about. This was the one where you could put your feet up a little bit, and also because of the waning crescent moon phase, it is time to rest a little bit and to recuperate after quite a stressful period of time. So lots and lots going on. In particular, there's this very deep energy in the sign of Sagittarius that I really want to explore with you. So I want to start first with the idea of the Mercury retrograde. It's starting on the 26th of November in the sign of Sagittarius at 22 degrees. It will move back all the way to 6 degrees in Sagittarius by the 15th of December. And then by the 3rd of January, it has moved forwards and gone past this point. So, we're well on our way again. But really what I'm talking about is this space between 6 degrees and 22 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius. It's got a lot of high energy right now. Now, if you want to know a lot more depth around Mercury retrograde and also the new moon in Sagittarius, I did record big chapters about them earlier in this video. And also, if you want a day-by-day breakdown to the week ahead, check out my day-to-day forecast, which again is earlier in this video. But this is really covering the sort of like Taurus component of how you're managing all this Sagittarius energy, and in particular, like the new promise of the new moon, and also the kind of mental rewinding that's going on for you. Now, where all this Sagittarius energy is occurring for you, Taurus, is really in the place of your chart about hidden psychology and secrets. It's very psychological. I always think it's very generational. You know, it picks up on a lot of inner psychology that's being passed down to you from family members right the way through to you right now, and possibly beyond if you've got children. It's a place where we share our familial values, you know, our shared values with those closest to us. And some of those values, we might have values and expectations that we have for other people around us. And sometimes when they're not met, we might feel angry. We might feel resentful that the people around us haven't quite achieved what we've expected of them. And likewise, it's a place where you might also feel a bit of blame and shame and guilt and stuff because of other people's expectations on you. What I love about Mercury retrograde here is he's about to turn the clock on all of those agreements that you might have unconsciously agreed to. So you might have unconsciously kind of agreed that, like, great grandmother Josie from whichever country like had this particular idea for you and you've not lived up to it. And so you might have kind of agreed to go on with this feeling of guilt, like this underlying feeling of guilt because you just haven't matched up to somebody's arbitrary expectation of you from 4 generations ago, you know. Or you might be feeling the shame and embarrassment for being the black sheep of your family. And you know it, they know it, nobody talks openly about it, maybe a little dig here and there, but you still feel it. Now, that's all like held really in this secret place. That's why I say nobody talks about it overtly. You know, it's kind of, we're all holding each other in chains in many respects. And so this Mercury retrograde, which is also in an opposition to Jupiter retrograde, is giving us the opportunity, or giving you the opportunity, to dial it back, to wind it back, to remember who you really are, to re-envisage who you are, to look at all the things you've done and to decide, you know, are you still happy to, you know, play the same game that has been played for many years? How can you free yourself from that? And if you are aware of this, then you might actually find the new moon in Sagittarius on the 1st of December to be quite helpful. You know, it is starting something new and liberating and freeing. And it could be liberating you from the values that other people have put on you, from the heavy pressure that you've been carrying possibly your whole life, without even fully understanding how it's got there. You know, how you became the unwilling, well, like the willing but unconscious recipient of all of this energy. You know, and this place is also a place of shared investments with people as well, and, you know, shared money. So stuff like that might come up as well, and that also complicates it. But really, what I want you to, if I was in your shoes right now, what I would suggest is, how can you find more freedom from your inner psychology? You know, what things are you holding yourself accountable for? Almost like you've got a gun pointed at you, you know, like the pressure, not an actual gun, like a figurative gun, but like the sort of pressure that you're putting yourself under all the time. If you could sit down, you know, this week in particular, you know, this week, as the waning moon phase is coming closer and closer and closer to nothing, it's a perfect time to turn back the clock and also go inward and look at your behaviors. Ask yourself, where do I feel pressured? Where do I feel pressured to perform? Where do I feel like a loser? Where do I feel embarrassment and shame? And really ask yourself those and sit with it. You don't have to take it seriously, but see what your mind comes up. And it might be words, it might be feelings. You might have particular sensations in your body, feelings of heat or cold, or colors that you're perceiving. I'm trained in NLP, by the way. That might be why I'm saying all this. You know, you might have little movie things playing in your mind. You might hear your mum's voice. You know, this can manifest in so many different ways. However, it's really hard to get really close and understand it until you take some time to yourself and find yourself in that peace and quiet, you know, because it's very easy to ignore it when you're in the throng of a busy life with all these different interactions. And you might be also under pressure in your professional life or in your life with your friendships or your partners right now. And it really seems like it's your current colleagues or your current partner that are putting the pressure on you. But actually, if you sit with it, you might find that the pressure that they appear to be putting onto you is the same pressure that you've carried your whole life. And so it's like you've been walking around with this permanent hook, and like you might like leave one job and hand that baggage back to the people, but you've still got that hook. You walk on to the next business, and lo and behold, somebody else puts the exact same kind of pressure on you. This is the week where you could get to the bottom of this. So I really do, encourage you to look closer at that. And feel the opportunity of freedom, because the real true meaning, I think, of Sagittarius is to find freedom and truth and knowledge that is inspiring you. Find something you can believe in, and that should be you. How can you believe in yourself more fully? You're freeing yourself in this week ahead to do just that. Now, this gets better as well. The sun is also in a trine to Mars. And so you might even get quite busy at home in this week ahead. And actually, as you're being busy at home, maybe tidying things up, maybe going through your cupboards. I think most of us, I know, I'm speaking for myself. I've got lots of different cupboards, not under the stairs, but cupboards that get neglected. When I look in them, I've got cupboards full of pads I've written astrological notes on and all sorts of things where I've been thinking, and I write in a gazillion pads, and then I go back and it takes me back to other times. There's probably like an archaeological, that's the word I was looking for earlier, an archaeologist, but there's like an archaeological dig that you might actually end up doing at home that helps you. It helps jog your mind so you know what is going on. It's like you are getting to the core parts of your inner programming in this week ahead. Last thing that's really feeding into this is the Venus Chiron square, which is interesting because, Chiron in the 12th really has probably brought up a lot of fears and insecurities in the last 6 years or so. It's brought a lot of new things up, and you might have in this last 6 year period or so, you might have noticed that there have been times when you felt extra anxiety that you've maybe never felt before. And, if that's true, then I think it's a Chiron thing. It's just that you've had Chiron going through here, and it brings up your vulnerabilities. Now, the fact that you felt anxious, if that is true, if you recognize what I'm talking about, that anxiety is coming from feelings of vulnerability. But you can only be vulnerable if you've decided you're weak in some way. Again, you might want to ask yourself, how am I exposed? How do I feel weak? How do I feel like I cannot heal? Where are the wounds that I'm not healing from? Now, again, it's really deep, but if you're able to notice what is going on with your senses as you're exploring this, stuff is going to come up. Now, Venus in the 9th is actually quite helpful. Even though they're in a square, Venus in the 9th is suggesting that there are people who are maybe outside of your usual perspective, who can see you really clearly. You may well find that there's somebody who can, maybe a coach or somebody that you trust, somebody that's not so intimately connected with you, or somebody that can stay very objective. Use them, not in a kind of like horrible usy way, but have a conversation with them, connect with them, ask them for their perspective, maybe share some of the process that you're going through, and see what comes up. Now, the square shows that it could be a bit jarring, but again, you could get to the bottom of what's going on. And really what I'm seeing here is you're freeing yourself. You're really freeing yourself. It's like you're emptying yourself of all the things that have been holding you back, and making life more of a compromise rather than you feeling like you are living for you right now. What you're doing right now is creating a beautiful blank canvas so that you can start again. And the 1st of December looks like a really good starting point. So I hope this is helpful. Very psychological position for this week, Taurus. But I think this is really useful for you. So lots and lots of love to you. Have a great week ahead. If I can be of any help, then just get in touch. All of my details are below. But yeah, have a good one, and hopefully connect with you real soon. Bye for now. Hey there, Gemini. How are you this week? How are you doing? So this is your forecast where I'm really talking about the energies of the new moon and also the energy of Mercury retrograde. So we've got Mercury retrograde going retrograde in your opposite sign from 22 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius on the 26th of November. Now, Mercury, when he goes retrograde, is always, like the process usually takes around about 3 weeks. And between the 26th of November to the 15th of December, that's when he's retrograde. So he goes back from 22 degrees to 6 degrees, and then he starts moving forwards again. End of retrograde. It's in your 7th house, which is about partnerships and how you connect to people. And I also think the 7th house is about our projections, what we maybe aren't owning in ourselves, and maybe what could really help us see ourselves much more clearly, like looking into a mirror. So this is a really interesting Mercury retrograde for you. What's adding into this is the fact that Mercury, which is also your ruling planet, so that definitely adds into it. Mercury is also in an opposition to Jupiter, which is also retrograde. Now, I spoke about this in last week's forecast. So again, it might be helpful to remind yourself what was said, because this is a hugely important retrograde period for you, where there's a lot of overstimulation. Jupiter coming through your first is really creating this internal need to understand things. And maybe to get quite clear about things internally about yourself. And yet there's also this really big series of questions about your relationships with other people that Mercury retrograde is bringing up. Now, also in this week ahead, which is also playing into this and is in the same part of the chart, in fact, the new moon is actually taking place in this retrograde canvas, I guess I'm going to call it, like the space that this retrograde is interacting with. The new moon is actually going to happen within that. So these are, I think, intimately linked, again, drawing new possibilities and new realizations for yourself in the realms of partnering. So yeah, there's a lot going on. So I'm going to explain it as much as I can. I will say, if you want to know more about Mercury retrograde, there is a chapter about this earlier in the video where I really go into it. I look at the Sabian symbols involved with it. If you want to know more about the new moon in Sagittarius, I talk about that at great length in an earlier chapter, including Sabian symbols and asteroids and a dwarf planet or two. One, in fact. So yeah, there's also that, and also a day-to-day chapter as well. So you can get your forecast in so many different ways. But right now, in terms of the zeitgeist of you, Gemini, and how this is going to affect you in the week ahead, I just think it's all about other people. If I was in your shoes right now, I think I would, make the most of the fact that we're in the waning crescent phase, which is, the moon is slowly disappearing, appearing to get darker every day. It's allowing us to come into ourselves. It's encouraging us to recuperate, repair, let go, be quiet, reflect, sit still, imagine. It's really encouraging you to slow right down, to not be quite so social as you might usually be. And if you are socializing, you might want to be socializing with more of your intimate or one-to-one friends, like not maybe go out in a massive group, but maybe just sit with somebody who's a little more thoughtful. So yeah, if I was in your shoes, I would be following the waning phase of the moon a lot more, letting go of things. But I would also be examining my relationships right now really, really closely, maybe journaling about them. Because what you're talking about in your relationships is also most likely you're talking about your relationship with yourself. And the journey through the sign of Sagittarius is about optimism and truth and hope, freedom. It's about confidence. It's about humor and fun. It's also about luck. So, if I was in your shoes, I think I would sit and journal a bit about the relationships I'm having, how they're coming in, how these people connect with me. What is their angle to connect with me, or how am I connecting with other people? I would be reviewing all of my dearest relationships from as many different angles as possible, because you might be learning a lot about yourself. For instance, how people can connect with you, how people can reach you, but actually how you can connect with yourself, how you can reach yourself. I do think as well, you'll be learning a lot from the self-talk that you're hearing from the people around you. The people around you, I think, are very reflective right now. They're seeming unusual. They are seeming maybe not so bouncy as usual, maybe not so optimistic as usual. Be interesting to see how you react to people who you usually trust to be the bouncy, optimistic people in your life, the people that help you to stay joyful and having fun. I wonder how it is for you to be around people that seem to have lost their mojo a little bit. And I wonder what that's bringing out in you. You might learn actually that you're more fun than you realize. And in fact, that the reason why people are coming into your life and showing you fun and expansiveness is because it's something about you that you're not fully acknowledging. Maybe as can come up with Geminis, maybe there has been a seriousness in the facts, the study, I think Geminis can do quite well in a corporate environment because you're able to see things in black and white quite easily and move quite quickly. I think in these times you can really get swallowed up by the normal way of living. And I think sometimes you forget how magical you are. So I think this is an interesting week ahead. If you're single and you've been single for a long time, then maybe do some writing, some kind of free exploratory writing about, or talking to a mic into your phone or something like that. Explore your feelings about previous people you've had in your life, what they've brought to you, what you've learned from them, how they came in, because you'll be giving yourself, it's like when you're talking, you're allowing your unconscious mind to open up. There is this real sort of openness that's coming, and it's all for you. This is really your journey. Other themes, I think, is about how you can connect more in love. In the Mercury retrograde section, the final Sabian symbol is this process is leading you to connect in love, to connect lovingly with people from all walks of life. So there is something in this Mercury retrograde that is helping you love everyone, not just a particular type of people. And maybe when you look at your old relationships, you might realize that the people you used to get lifted up by were a lot more diverse than maybe the people that you've got in your life right now. You might have had lots of different people from all walks of life, and maybe it's time to expand that out. So yeah, I think you're exploring yourself by exploring your relationships. If you are looking for love, like from the new moon on the 1st of December, I really think there's a beautiful openness, for people to kind of hook into you and to see you as a willing and hopeful and happy and open person to connect with. So in looking at this week ahead, Gemini, what I think you're doing is kind of emptying yourself out. You're reviewing, you're remembering, you're relearning some of your old patterns. And in that, it is changing the way you feel. It's kind of breaking everything down. A couple of last things I want to share with you, and that is, there is also the sun in a trine to Mars in this week ahead. And Mars is really showing you, I think, a lot about your position within the community and within friendship groups. It's showing you that you've put in a lot of energy historically, but also that you're much stronger than you realize. You probably don't realize the strength that people see in you, and I think that is due to come out, and maybe this review period is there to just show you just that. There's also a Venus square going on with Chiron, and Chiron in this part of your chart is showing where over the last few years it's felt like you've been attracted to people who've maybe had a similar hurt or a similar upset or a similar world focus to you. And so that's kind of bonded you together, in this crazy world where everyone, like your superheroes, like connecting and fighting the world at the same time. And yet right now you might realize that particular banding together for one purpose is actually not really who you are. That actually who you are is somebody who likes the variety of people around you, not so much tightly focused energy. In doing so, and having Venus going through this 8th house of yours, you're learning a lot more about your psychological needs. And I think variety is still very much the spice of life for you. So again, I really see that one of the big learnings this week is that you're not playing into the sides. You're shifting from polarity. And with this Mercury retrograde and new moon in Sagittarius, you're coming into a place of unity. So have a good week ahead. If I can be of any help, just get in touch. But yeah, this is really deep acting stuff. And I think your relationships are going to reflect who you really, truly are a lot more very soon. So have a good one, Gemini, and hopefully we'll connect again real soon. Bye for now. Hey there, Cancer. So this is a new moon in Sagittarius forecast and also a Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius forecast. And both of these are taking place in the week starting Monday the 25th, taking you right the way through to Sunday the 1st of December. So I'm sort of embracing it all. There's definitely a strong Sagittarian theme for sure. And you can see that here and where it's showing up in your chart. Now, in this week ahead, we are going through a really long, slow, kind of waning crescent phase, where the moon is appearing to disappear into itself. And I really see that as an opportunity, or maybe even a symbol that it's time for us or you to retreat into yourself, to take some time to yourself to recover, languish, reflect, and start to serve yourself a lot more rather than serving the outer world. Absolutely a time to come in. And obviously Mercury retrograde is also going to be serving that. Mercury goes retrograde on the 26th, that's Tuesday, and he starts his retrograde journey at 22 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius. He will end his journey, his retrograde journey, on the 15th of December. So it's in just over 2 weeks, like between 2 and 3 weeks time. And then he will go direct again at 6 degrees. Now, what interests me about the new moon in Sagittarius is it falls in this retrograde space. The new moon and Mercury retrograde are absolutely highlighting a potential part of your chart and really showing that there's a lot of unfinished business there. There's something to amend, to review, to change, to work on. If you think about the energies of the new moon, like leading up to the new moon, the moon is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And so I see that as us shifting and releasing and letting go. It's a really good time to be grateful for what has worked, to recognize what hasn't worked, and to let it go as gracefully as possible. It's just like, let it go, let it go, let it go. Kind of breathe in and slowly start to release what no longer serves you. And so, by the time you come to the new moon on Sunday, the 1st of December, there is this potential that you could be, I don't want to say empty, because you can never fully empty out, can you? But this is, I think, us clearing a space to plant a new seed, as if you're in your garden, you're pulling out the old stuff, preparing your soil so it's lovely to put a really nice seed in. And, to have that poise and that sort of magical grace to give it time, give that little seedling some quiet time, some space, so that it can start to swell with the potential that it can slowly break out. The roots come down and the shoot comes up, and then it starts to interact with the world in its own unique way. Well, that's a bit like the new moon energies. You are sowing a seed, and this seed has a Sagittarius energy to it. So let's just quickly talk a little bit around the idea of the seeds that you're sowing and link them into how you might be reviewing this area with the Mercury retrograde. You know, the sign of Sagittarius is known for its kind of happiness, its laid back, relaxed kind of nature. You know, it's absolutely wanting to have some fun. It's a bit of a party animal at different times. You know, it is quite energetic, quite upbeat. It's very hopeful and optimistic. You know, the sign of Sagittarius, I think, and I am one, by the way, my son's in the sign of Sagittarius. I've got 4 planets and a North Node there. You know, the sign of Sagittarius is about aiming high. You know, we're absolutely optimistic. So there's the energy of optimism, the desire for freedom, the desire for space, the desire for truth, and possibilities. And you know, the thing with Sagittarians is they're often very futuristic, really reaching for the stars, reaching for the absolute best outcome, shooting their arrows really high and long. And, you know, not all the arrows, in fact, very few of them actually hit the mark. But, you know, their optimistic nature takes them closer and closer to different goals. And the funny thing is, by the time the goals come around, you've often wandered off and gone to the next one. So, you know, they are known as being, you know, like shooting a lot of positive energy in a particular direction, not necessarily being that attached to whether it actually works or not. And then, as luck would have it, you know, they are known for being lucky. Things seem to drop into place. And so I think there's a lot we can learn from that kind of approach, you know, that sort of let's see, let's find out. And then kind of be kind of carefree and relaxed about it. So if you think about it, that kind of energy isn't terribly that aligned to the Cancerian energy. You know, the Cancerian energy is a lot more sensitive, a lot more attached. If you think of the pincers, it gets really attached to you know, what you are wanting in your awareness, and all the people around you. And so it's a very sort of different kind of energy. Now, where this new moon is landing in your chart is in the 6th house, which is about how you're organizing your life, like your entire life. So, you know, your routines for everything, you know, like what time you're getting up, how you're getting up, where you're getting up, what you're doing, your work, your home, your money, your health, your diet, all of those routines. It's actually kind of a, you know, it's not the most glamorous part of the chart. You know, it's down to business. You know, it's absolute business as usual. So it's kind of interesting that you've got the zaniness of Sagittarius, you know, reflected in this part of your chart, really showing that you can probably get quite distracted from the things that you're wanting to do in terms of your routines. In fact, you probably have to use a real load of really, really strong level of discipline to be able to make your life work. Now, what's really, I think, coming on right now is this sense of hope and optimism that maybe it's time to rearrange things. Maybe it's time to throw caution to the wind a little bit and to follow your emotions, follow your intuition, follow your heart, which a Sagittarian would always do. And that's, I think, one area that you really overlap. You're really heart-led. You're really like, absolutely, you draw into, you know, what you're feeling. And Sagittarians, absolutely, they're going from one thing to another, but it's always based on feeling and feeling good. How can I feel better right now? So you might choose to ask yourself these questions as Mercury's going retrograde. You know, when you're looking at your life and the infrastructure of your life, you might say, how can I feel better about my life? How can I enjoy all of the aspects of my life more? How can it get easier than this? How can it be more graceful? You know, there are, you know, and you'll have your own questions that you might want to ask. But I think the Mercury retrograde here is absolutely giving you the space to create more health possibilities for yourself, create more diet possibilities and work and money, etc., etc. I also think with Mercury retrograde, you're wanting to I think kind of look at the big picture, but take a few steps back from it. You know, so like look at the big picture and think, okay, well, what am I learning from this? You know, like you know, like create some details around the big picture. You know, the big picture, it's very easy to get lost. You know, you're just seeing the context, but you're not really seeing everything, all the little pieces. And so what I really think with this retrograde, you're going to get the chance to examine the bigger picture from a different perspective. and maybe sort of break things down in a new way, in a more creative way. And this is also in opposition to Jupiter going through your 12th house. So there really is this kind of emphasis right now on getting the balance right from your physical health and your internal, mental, spiritual health. So they might be a good way to explore things at the moment. You might also, given this very strong opposition with Jupiter here, you might also be very aware of the impermanence of things, and how whilst you're trying to balance your very conscious outward facing life with the sense that everything is falling away. That everything is maybe not as real as you'd thought. Maybe you're realizing that the world as we see it really isn't as we see it. That there are spiritual principles behind everything. And so how do you get the balance right there as well? Now, the new moon in Sagittarius, I think, is going to give you that opportunity. So it might just be that in this week ahead, as you're coming into yourself a bit more, being a lot more reflective than usual, that you might like as you're like hearing yourself speak a bit more, like hearing yourself internally, that you'll have a new sense of where you're going towards the end of the week, towards the new moon in Sagittarius. You might get a sense of actually how you do want to do it. And, keywords I think are fun, also talent, luck and opportunity. The exact position of this new moon, the Sabian symbol for it, and I've spoken about this in an earlier chapter called New Moon in Sag, and also done a separate chapter about the Mercury Retrograde in Sagittarius as well. But the actual Sabian symbol, I think, is about revealing your hidden talent, revealing the opportunities for you at this time with the new moon. So the more you can clear out to create a bit of space for yourself, I think the more your true talents are coming out. So maybe you haven't been quite fully embedded in your talents. Maybe you've been managing life so much that you've not really felt yourself like your true calling coming out. So I think this is a fantastic new moon in terms of your calling. Now, Mars is also in a lovely trine to the sun, which is great because, Mars is also in a trine to the new moon. And so Mars is really helping you to lift your beliefs about yourself, to be ready to receive, to go into receivership, to feel a lot more positive in terms of your contribution, to know who you are. So I think you are getting these reminders. Mars is really saying, look at what you've done. look how many people appreciate you, so that you really do start to hear it. Around the 28th, there is a slightly more challenging aspect coming in, and that's Chiron here is in a square to Venus. Now, with this, it's interesting with Venus in your 7th, I think you've probably had quite a lot of feedback or a sense of how the people around you are feeling. And it just, during these times, I think you realize, that the people you have around you, I think you often pick people that aren't quite as sensitive as you, so that you don't have to overfeel things a lot. But the people around you, in particular towards the end of this week, I think are starting to feel a little bit distant, feel a little bit triggered, as if they are going through some things, in particular in terms of their jobs and, their career, how they stand in the world, their sense of status. So I think that's interesting, because whatever is going on for people in your chart, coming from this part of your chart, is about the projections, the mirror work that you're doing, the shadow work that you're doing with other people, whether you realize you're consciously doing it or not. So, if you are noticing that the people around you are feeling a bit disconnected, they're not very certain of themselves in terms of their career, ask yourself, what am I missing about myself? What is it that, how am I not feeling secure in myself? Take it all as a mirror image. This is a very, very reflective week, and also a time when new promise is awaiting at the end of the week. The more you can see yourself reflected back, the more I think you can actually change come the new moon. So this is a really interesting time, intense time, and I think you'll really, really benefit from it. Last thing I want to say is, overall, one of the messages of this retrograde, and also the new moon and their Sabian symbols, again, like the fullness of that is explored earlier in this video, but what came across to me is like that we're not really wanting to play into sides at the moment. You know, we're shifting from polarity, i.e. left and right, up and down, black and white. We're shifting from this kind of polarity consciousness into a place of unity consciousness. And it starts with us. You know, so everyone in your life, everything that is showing up right now is there to show you who you are. So I hope that's helpful, Cancer. And of course, the new moon, you know, the moon is your ruling planet. So this is a very, very important time for you. So enjoy this week ahead. If I can be of any extra help, then just get in touch. All of my details are below. But yeah, have a great one. And hopefully we'll connect in real soon. Bye for now. Hey there, Leo. So this is a reading about the new moon in Sagittarius and also Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius from your unique perspective as a Leo. Either you've got Leo sun or Leo rising or possibly even Leo moon. Now, earlier in this video, I did record a day-by-day forecast for the week ahead. We're talking about Monday, the 25th of November, right the way through to Sunday, the 1st of December. So there is an earlier chapter about the day-by-day forecast. I've also done separate forecasts for both Mercury retrograde and also the new moon in Sagittarius, but I am going to be talking about them in respect of who you are and how it's showing up for you in this week, because they're both really big. You know, Mercury retrograde, you know, when he goes retrograde, he's going retrograde for about 3 weeks at a time, give or take. So it's starting on the 26th, that's Tuesday the 26th. He's starting at 22 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius and taking you all the way back to 6 degrees. And he'll get there on the 15th of December and then start moving forwards and go completely past here. What interests me about the new moon in Sagittarius is that it's playing out at 9 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius. So it's actually within this whole retrograde space. And so again, like I said earlier in this show, I explored the range of degrees from 6 to 22 and also Sagittarius at 9 degrees, in particular with the Sabian symbols, which give us quite a lot of information. But this new moon, its Sabian symbol is really talking about our talent, our unique talent and our opportunity and our luck, our sense of luck. And of course, in the sign of Sagittarius, it's absolutely about what we're optimistic about, hopeful about, truthful about, how we're following our philosophy, our sense of freedom, our buoyancy. It's about confidence. It's fun. It is funny. It's got a sense of humor. It doesn't take itself too seriously. So this new moon, I think, is about how can you experience more out of life? How can you really supersize it? How can you large it up a bit? And it's interesting as well, because in this particular sign, in this house in your chart, you know, it's got such a load of 5th house energy. And the 5th house, I always think of as a place of children, you know, or us being a bit childish, us being, one of the things you notice when you're around small children is they believe so much about themselves, you know, like they believe they're better than everyone else. They believe they can climb a mountain. You know, they don't seem to stop themselves with their own level of skepticism. And that's, I think, why we love children so much. You know, they bring out a sort of protectiveness about, you know, around them, but they also bring out this sense of, wow, you've got masses of self-confidence there, kiddo. Love you. And so it's great. And so I really see that this new moon in this part of your chart is about your growing self-confidence, your ability to feel like a superhero around your talents. And because of that, opportunities are coming out of this. This is great as far as I can see, you know. Also, the sun is in a trine with with Mars in Leo. And of course, Mars is in your 1st house. That's also a time when you tend to come back into confidence, when you feel stronger, you feel more certain, you feel like you have a bit more of a direction. And the trine between Mars and the sun is giving you the warmth and courage to start to build on your ideas. So I see this as absolutely a fantastic time. This is bringing you back into yourself, back into your groove, your own rhythm, so that you can explore and have that kind of superhero feeling. And, you know, you're birthing something. There is something coming out of you. It's like you're birthing a new reality for yourself. Now, during this week, we are also going through the waning crescent phase, and it's usually quite a quiet time. It's a time when we tend to sit back a little bit. We need a bit more rest. We sleep more. It's a great time for being a bit meditative. And it's also a big time to really let go of stuff that's not working for us. I'm a real advocate for that, kind of let go, let go, let go, let go, tidy things up, put things in order. I mean, what you're really doing there is creating space for yourself whilst also reviewing what you're doing. Because in that review, you slow right down and you see, that's not me anymore. Let it go. Wow, that is so me. Bring it along for the ride. So, just having this waning crescent moon is working in your favor. And funnily enough, the Mercury retrograde is also giving you an element of that. Mercury retrograde is us turning our outward thinking inward. And it's also working in opposition to Jupiter. Now, I spoke about this in last week's update. Mercury and Jupiter in their opposition is creating an overstimulation of ideas and thoughts and everything you've ever thought and wondered about. It just seems to be right here hanging in your consciousness right now. And so again, this whole review period that you're going through in this week ahead, where you're tidying up your inner thoughts and tidying up your inner life, I think it's giving you everything you need to know about how you're launching yourself, relaunching yourself come that new moon in Sagittarius. It's a big one for you. So I'm excited. I think this is going to be really, really positive. And the key words, I think, is the more playful you are, the more expectant you are of great change, the more optimistic and happy you are, the more humorous you are, the easier it gets. And, the humor is going to really serve you because Jupiter and Mercury in opposition are really helping us not play into sides. That's one of the key words, I think, or phrases or sentiments that I've sort of picked up on and been really hearing a lot this week. It's like not playing into sides. 6 of one, half a dozen the other. There are so many different ways to see. There's so many different ways we could do things here on Earth right now. And there's so many different ways you could do things in life. And why push yourself down one path, push yourself down one way of thinking when you could open yourself up to the full breadth of possibility? And so I really see that there is a shift from polarity thinking to a place of trust and unity. So that is also very much part of it. Funnily enough, this Mercury retrograde that we're going through right now, you're going through, or we will be, from the 26th, it starts in a place of, I think, getting us to account for things. And where it ends is about us connecting lovingly with other people. So I really think the more we expand our thinking in this period of time, and the more we can share thinking with other people, be open to different people's belief systems, be more into conversations, not just to be right, but to be happy, to really find out what makes people tick. The more we're doing this and being open and positive, the more likely we are to be connecting with people from all walks of life. To me, it feels like your reach as a human is about to get so much bigger. And what couldn't be better? How could it get better? In fact, you're in this space of creating something new, and there's new people coming into your world. There's new realizations coming into your world. So it's all working out how it's meant to work out. I'm really sure of that. One last thing I do want to mention, and that's the square between Venus and Chiron. So Chiron has brought up a little bit of maybe a bit of pain, maybe a bit of insecurity, and a lot of learning, a lot of wisdom, from your learned experience, in terms of the big world. Sometimes we venture out into the world a bit too soon without kind of understanding all the implied rules that no one's ever really stated to us, but we get knocked back, don't we? We take a step out, and humans and their rules or their attitudes, their personalities and stuff, they kind of get you to toe the line. We're always norming, aren't we, to expectations. And so I do think, you've got a bit of a bee in your bonnet or an insecurity about being shut down from being yourself, especially right now. And it's also interesting, with Venus going through your 6th house, it is, I think, trying to harmonize your life and get it flowing really nicely. So to me, it also feels like there's something to heal around the end of the week, to realize that your life can't get that harmonious all the while you're feeling a little bit boxed in from how you are interacting in the big world. So what are you going to shift, or what can you shift? Is it possible to take other people's guidance? I say that in bunny ears, like that kind of guidance or that knockback. Are you able to take the knockback from people, like the trolling from people, the everyday trolling? Are you able to take it in your stride and not let it affect you? Are you able to see it as just information? You're different, I'm different, we have different set points. That's completely fine. Thank you for sharing what you've shared. It's not for me, but thank you. Is it possible that you can make that work somehow? Because the sooner you sort that out and not get offended by it, the easier your life is going to flow. And boy, is it about to flow quite fast, as if a dam has broken and all of a sudden you're back in your groove. So there you go. Really hopeful for you, Leo. This feels really exciting and new and fresh, which is exactly what you've been hoping for. I'm really sure of that. So have a great week ahead. If I can be of any greater help or service, then just get in touch. All of my details are below, but have a good one, and hopefully we'll connect in real soon. Bye for now. Hey there, Virgo. So this is a new moon in Sagittarius and also Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius reading. They're both taking place in this week ahead. And so again, this is also like a week ahead reading forecast, taking you from Monday, the 25th of November, right the way through to Sunday, the 1st of December. So yeah, there's a lot going on this week. However, this is the smoother week of November. If you looked at my forecast for November, I did say, oh yeah, this is the week where we can reflect a little bit more, relax a little bit more, take it a bit easier, not take things so personally. The Sagittarius energy is very, very strong. And, as such, I think the Sagittarians, they might offend people by being a little bit too open, sometimes a bit too transparent. Doesn't always suit everyone. They're known as being a bit tactless. I say I'm a Sagittarius as well. But yeah, there is a hopefulness, a sort of kindly hopefulness, a sort of innocent, put your foot in your mouth kind of thing. Nobody's really coming from a place of malice. And so I really think this sort of big level of Sagittarian energy is probably just what we need right now. So let's get cracking. Now, Virgo, you might want things a little bit more specific. If you do, there is a day-by-day forecast. If you just go back earlier in the video, you'll see it there. Also, all of these subjects, or these two subjects, Mercury retrograde and also the new moon in Sagittarius, I've also looked at them at a much deeper level in separate chapters earlier in this whole thing. So check them out. In those, I'm including asteroids. I'm also including Sabian symbols. So it does go quite in depth. I'm going to start, I think, with Mercury retrograde, because Mercury is your ruling planet, so, this is going to affect you Virgo a lot more than it would affect other people. So your ruling planet Mercury, he's in his detriment in Sagittarius, but hey, we all have to go through different parts of our life where we don't feel quite so confident. He's going retrograde, and this is a time when our externalized thought is internalized, and it's also contextual. It's also big picture information, and it's also in a very sort of private part of your chart. So I think there's a lot of inward thinking about your overall life, your overall purpose, your overall security. It's not a time when you necessarily want to be out having long conversations with people and going into depth about what's going on, because what's going on for you this week, I think, is a very sort of private process. So you might talk to your nearest and dearest, but it's on a need to know basis. This is you working out what you need to feel secure in yourself. And so I think it's also about getting very clear, like, what needs do you need to, like, what do you need met right now? And how can you hone in on that? So Mercury retrograde, he's going to be bringing up all sorts of stuff about your home, from how you're living in terms of comfort levels, how you're affording it, how you are interacting with the people in your home. Yeah, and how can you feel more harmony? How can you feel more stabilized? How can you feel more certain in life? You know, when we've got our home sorted out, I think we're a lot stronger. You know, we feel a lot more supported, and therefore we can make more courageous leaps forward. I'm really sure of that. And so you might want to include that in your thinking. Now, it also just happens to be the week where we're in the waning crescent phase of the moon. And so the moon appears to be getting smaller and smaller and disappearing before our very eyes. This is a time when the collective need to face our darkness, or to face our tiredness, to face our need for a bit of comfort comes in. You know, so during this time, it's not really a week ahead to be running around, rushing around, doing this, that, and the other. It's a time to maybe have a couple of early nights, maybe curl up with a book that inspires you but doesn't tax you too much. You know, maybe you know, it's a time to look after yourself, to care for yourself, and to just be absolutely gentle and loving with everyone around you within your home. It's a time when we're letting go of things. So if you've had a lot of goals and things like that you've been working towards, you know, you might just look at that and say, oh my God, my job list is really unloving towards me, and get rid of a load of stuff. You know, I really see that your ability to manage your time and to get rid of the stuff that's superfluous is really important. So be bold in that. You know, let go of stuff, and just keep the things that really resonate to you and that are going to help you in your home. Now, I keep mentioning home, and that's because this Sagittarius part of your life is absolutely about your fundamental structures and your feeling of safety and security. Now, Mars happens to be connecting in a lovely trine to the sun, and also we'll be connecting to the new moon on the 1st of December. But Mars is really actively helping you to see what's going on in your mind's eye. It's almost like an active solitude. You know, Mars is really wanting you to recognize where your inner snippiness is coming from, your inner critic, your inner drive that maybe drives you to distraction. You'll be able to see these things a lot more easily if you're not distracted with the usual BS of everyday life. You know, it's really asking you to come out of your normal life as much as you can, so that you're attending to yourself and noticing what Mars is doing. You know, you might be working on some old self-sabotage, you know, like you're getting irritated about stuff, things don't go very well. Then before you know it, you hear yourself in your minds, you know, like in your mind, you hear yourself in your inner ears, you hear the criticisms, and you're able to say, I'm out of balance here, you know. So Mars is really helpful, you know, and Mars is also wanting to work, you know, with the sun. He's trying to make you stronger. So, you know, what you might find is to be active in your solitude. So, you know, when you've managed to kind of kick the outside world away, you know, you might want to get very active in organizing things at home, maybe paint a wall or strip things down, you know, everything that is uncovering and digging is really, really helpful. So, you know, get into your garden or do a little bit of a light DIY. I wouldn't go overboard. But yeah, anything that is clarifying and cleaning and clearing is going to really help you. Now, the new moon, its position in terms of Sabian symbols is also bringing up talent. You know, it's this particular degree of the zodiac is absolutely revealing hidden talents, hidden opportunities, and a sense of luck and optimism. Now, of course, if you're feeling quite relaxed and easygoing, it's much easier to be opportunistic because you all of a sudden get to see all the opportunities as they're coming your way. You don't have too many distractions. So that in itself is good. So clear away as much as possible, especially if you are wanting to bring your natural talents out. I also think that natural talents are more likely to emerge when you feel secure in yourself. Because if you're not secure in yourself, you're thinking about your security. And of course, when you're thinking about your security, you're not relaxed enough to truly flow. You know, talents, I think, really need a certain amount of flow to be really felt. So again, clear, and you'll be ready to explore your talents more and go into this place of self-discovery. There's also the thoughts of optimism, truth, philosophy, freedom, a sort of bounciness, a sort of confidence. It's also funny, like the sign of Sagittarius is humorous. It likes to laugh at itself. It doesn't take itself too seriously. So the more you can activate that at home, the more you can sort of connect to an inner joy or an inner calm and a humorous philosophy, the easier life is going to get. You'll be really working, with the planets rather than against them. Now, one way to, I think, see how everything is really playing out is to consider the fact that, Jupiter is retrograde in the sign of Gemini at the moment. Jupiter is really kind of opposite all of these energies. And for you, Jupiter is, I think, getting you to rethink your career, but on an outer level, sort of out in the workplace, considering things like your boss, your clients, what it is that you're creating in terms of output. It's all very much based on facts. It's all very much based on feedback and recommendations and all these kind of inner, the minutiae of your job. But actually, the best way to really find out who you are is to go, I think, very much on a sacred mission. It's funny because I actually was on a beautiful free 4-day course this week run by a Virgo person. So if you're watching this, Whitney, it's a plug for you, my darling, because actually the energy of connecting into your true talent, I think, is more likely to come from going on a sacred soul journey. And by the way, if that does appeal to you, check out one of my postings in my community tab, where I'm talking about Whitney's course. I don't know. I didn't realize I was going to say that here. And then when I saw Virgo, I knew Whitney was a Virgo. That's why I've mentioned it. But, understanding things at a soul basis, at a sort of more shamanistic energy, that's where you'll really find your true answers. So, it's not external right now. Your journey is internal, and that's where all the shifts are taking place. The last thing I really want to talk about, I think, is the square between Chiron and Venus that's coming in right at the end of the week. I mean, it's already there, but it's sort of very strong on the 28th, and then it starts to fade off. But, Venus in the 5th has been helping you to, again, get excited about your skills and get excited about doing the things that you love. It's encouraged you. It's almost been like a gentle encouragement. Maybe for, like the first time in almost well over a year, it feels like you were starting to pick up signals and signs and an inner trust in yourself. And then just towards the end of the week, you're coming up against some resistance. And I think it's Chiron here in the 8th. It's like this inner doubter. It's like the doubting Thomas. And it might come through in the voice of one of your relatives or someone around you that's like, that'll never work. You're such a dreamer. You always go through this process. Oh, we're back here, are we? This kind of inner silent critic. It's really important that as you come up, as this comes up, if it does come up, I really hope it doesn't, but if you notice this coming up towards the end of the week, sit with it, feel it, ask it questions, say, oh, really? Tell me more. And kind of get your inner notebook out, or actually physically write it down. Tell me more about why I am going around in circles. What is it you notice? Because this is a side of you that's coming up, and it might be coming up in the voices of other people around you. It's just proxy. It's all you. Just so you know, it's not actually these people saying it. Most likely, it's you. It's coming up in you. So ask yourself, ask your unconscious mind to talk more about the resistance, because that is showing you what you need to let go of or work on. And again, you could take it on as an action and think, I'm so bad, I need to do this A, B, C, D, and E before I can ever get this far. And that may or may not be true. But what you could do is say, wow, now I know that A, B, C, D, and E are things that I feel unsure about, things that I would like reassurance and some confidence about. So I'm going to talk to this person about A. I'm going to park B for the moment. C, I'm going to be doing in January. So you're breaking it down and you're kind of communicating with that fearful part of yourself that is trying to put you off. And the only reason it's doing that is so that you don't make a fool of yourself. Now, the chances are you're not going to make a fool of yourself. It's just one of hundreds of different strategies that you all have to protect you from ever finding out how great and wonderful you are. But maybe, just maybe, with this very positive new moon in Sagittarius that's about to bring out that sense of talent and luck, and is encouraging you to do just that, maybe, just maybe, it's time to dare yourself, to move beyond your programming, to move through your programming so that you can start to realize some of that amazing, beautiful potential, that yummy potential that lives right in here. So that's where I want to leave this, Virgo. This is a very deep acting Mercury retrograde. It's really helping you know so much more about yourself. And like I said, just to recap, it's coming back to your comfort and your feeling of security in yourself. If you can have a sense of humor, this will take you so much further than it will do if you don't have a sense of humor. So have a great week ahead. Enjoy the new moon. If I can be of any help, get in touch. All of my details are below. But yeah, catch up with you soon, hopefully, in another forecast. Bye for now. Hey there, Libra, how you doing? So in this forecast, I'm going to be talking about Mercury retrograde going from 22 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius. He's going to be retrograde for just around about, usually around 3 weeks. He'll be going direct on the 15th of December. So this energy is with us for quite some time. When he goes direct on the 15th of December, it will be at 6 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius. So yeah, he's going backwards and then later forwards in this part of your chart here. Now you'll also see on the 1st of December, the new moon, which I've represented here in yellow, is also taking part in this space. So it's a very, very potent part of your chart. And that's what I really want to examine within this short forecast. I'm also paying attention to the moon phase right now and a couple of other aspects. So we're really talking about the forecast taking us from the 25th of November, that's Monday, 25th of November, right the way through to Sunday, the 1st of December. Now, if you watched my month ahead forecast earlier, in November, you'd have noticed that I said that this was the week that was a lot more easygoing, a lot more reflective, where we're learning a lot more and we're just not so active. I put part of that down to the fact that we've got the waning crescent moon right now. So the moon, having been big, is now getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and it's absolutely tied in with us letting go of things, shifting things, kind of tidying up our life in many respects, getting to the bottom of things and letting go of anything that's no longer relevant, so I've got an itch. This is, I think, giving everything back in a feeling of trust, like anything that is no longer you, just letting it go. It's just like dropping out of view. And it's interesting, I'm saying dropping out of view because right now, and I spoke about this in last week's forecast, there is this opposition between Mercury and Jupiter. From the 26th, they'll both be retrograde in opposition in each other's signs. And they both have quite a bit, I think, to do with communication and information flow and also movement, moving around and traveling and stuff. But one is more favoring black and white info, like that's Mercury. He's more your rationalist. And then Jupiter is more about the big picture and the religious or experiential side. And so what I think, in terms of things dropping out of view with this waning crescent moon is that there's so much coming up right now, so much overstimulation, lots of extra bits that we wouldn't have even known we needed to know, if that makes sense. There's so much that things are dropping out of view so fast, you can't actually necessarily know what is ceasing to be in your experience because there's just so much present. So I think if you can consciously take a step back this week, get a few early nights, rest up a little bit, start recuperating, relaxing and refreshing, all these RE words, these re words, which I think are absolutely perfect for a Mercury retrograde. You will re-emerge at the end of Mercury retrograde on the 15th. And beyond that, on the 3rd of January, when the sun has moved, not the 3rd of January, the 3rd of January, when Mercury has moved out of this space for good. So, yeah, it's a bit of a process. Now, what's the point of this process, I think, is to help remind you who you really are, help remind you the kind of community space that you want to be in, help remind you about the kinds of journeys and movements that are right for you, but also to remind you about your self-communication, so like the Mercury is normally outward facing. In the retrograde position, I always think that Mercury is talking to us, or we can talk to us. We really hear ourselves. Now, I think, the third house really shows us where we can be a jack of all trades, where our talents can come out. So I really think that during this time, you're also thinking long and hard about your internal talents, like your forgotten talents. What did you used to like doing as a child, and why? Is there an arm of it or something about that particular talent or pastime that is coming up for, with greater relevance right now? So there's a lot going on, and maybe it's in this space of being overwhelmed with the current information flows that is going to trigger that recall and kind of put you in the right frame of mind to rediscover yourself in a new way. And of course, that will have a knock-on effect in terms of your community, the people you're chatting with, all the meetings and stuff. I mean, this part of the chart is a very busy part of the chart. So a lot of it might be triggered from your busyness, although I do think that in this week ahead, you're less likely to be actively busy. But, you might find it useful to go and sit in a cafe with a book or something. So you're still out and about, but more in an internal space. So, yeah. There's some of the themes. The themes of Sagittarius are interesting to talk about as well. There's a real sense of coming into hope, coming into optimism, coming into self-belief. The sign of Sagittarius tends to be quite confident in itself, unless there's something really kind of drastic in your chart that really negates that. But there's a natural kind of confidence, a natural funniness, a natural sense of humor, a lightness. And also, this desire, I think, to bring in some insight and a lot more freshness with our views. If you think about the centaur, half human, half horse, that horse wants to move around quite a bit. It wants the freedom, wants to feel the wind in his hair or her hair. And so the Sagittarian is always looking for fresh pastures. So hence it brings in a much bigger worldview, and it's much more philosophical. It finds its truth in many different places. Like wherever you're focused, you can find a truth. And so Mercury retrograde is bringing you this breadth right now, and it might not make so much sense. It might feel a bit confusing. I really do feel that there is a almost like an intellectual zeitgeist going on for you right now. Now, the new moon in Sagittarius is obviously in this place, and the new moon fundamentally is, like, I think, a seed point. The waning crescent is it's appearing that the moon is disappearing, and we've got this clean, open space for something new. So you're planting a seed, and it's a Sagittarian seed. So it's growing Sagittarian opportunities. Now, what I get here is there is this fresh input. There's this fresh feeling of development coming in terms of how you're expressing your new knowledge, how you're expressing your new realizations, the inspiration of it, the heartbeat of it. And interestingly, if you want to know more about Mercury retrograde and the new moon in Sagittarius, I did bigger chapters, like non-Libra chapters, but like across the board chapters about them. One of the things that I noticed about the new moon in Sagittarius is at that degree of 9 degrees, it corresponds with what's known as the Sabian symbol, to do with talent, opportunity, and luck. So, you can listen into those chapters for sure, but there is this kind of predisposition for this new moon to be opening us up to a greater level of talentedness and brilliance and genius. So if you're creating a seed point for yourself to fully express who you are and maybe your purpose for being here, that's a really good intention to put out into your world. I think that's kind of magical, and it's likely to be really picked up with Mercury retrograde. So Mercury is going to go over the sun, and then he's going to go straight over the sun again, really picking up everything that you've been learning and shifting it forwards exponentially. So I think this is a great part of your chart right now, but that's not all, because in this week ahead, the sun here is also in a trine with Mars. So Mars is really supporting your rediscovery of yourself within your environment. I mean, obviously, if you were going through these changes in another part of your chart, you might be rediscovering yourself in a completely new way. But in this one, it's about rediscovering, I think, what makes you shine, what makes you connect with people, what makes people impressed with you. And interestingly, Mars here is also coming from a place, it's like you've got extra energy. Maybe you've got extra energy from the people around you, and in your networks. Maybe you've learned things from your friends of friends, your work friends, any of your connections that aren't in your inner circle, I think are really showing up here. So it's like knowledge coming in from far away, knowledge coming in from trusted people in different parts of the world. That is all adding into this whole experience. It might be that you're getting a little shift or a nudge from someone outside of your regular experience, and all of a sudden it sends you on a new journey. Now, Mars and the sun in a trine is also about, I think, using more courage, feeling a lot more confident, naturally confident. It's moving, it's catalyzing you right now. So I think this is absolutely brilliant. Now, the other thing, and this is the last thing I wanted to talk about, and this is the energy of Venus in a square to Chiron. Obviously, Venus is your ruling planet, and so it's worth bearing a little bit of this in mind. So currently, Venus is in the sign of Capricorn, and she's bringing a lot more harmony and I think practical respect around home. So things are neatening up, beautifying, feeling more comfortable. You're feeling a lot more, I think, peaceful in your body. And I think you're kind of clarifying how you can feel secure, so there's that harmoniousness around your security. However, in this week ahead, Venus comes into a little bit of a tense point with Chiron, which is and has been in the sign of Aries for a really long time, in your 7th house. Any insecurities that you have to do with the people around you, like you're in your inner sanctum, like your partner, your family, it feels like there is this moment of disconnection, almost like you can't reach each other. If you think Venus is about your flow and your ability to collaborate, to kind of merge with people a little bit, to be able to feel their vibe and to share in that, there's a loveliness about Venus. But with this sort of frustration with Chiron, and Chiron's sort of frustration back to Venus, how this is showing, I think, in the week ahead is that you, as you're feeling more comfortable in yourself at home, things are starting to come up in terms of your relationships. I truly believe that when things are quite hard, life is only showing us, and by life I'm actually really, I think, talking about your unconscious mind, which is what we're viewing everything through the lens of. That's my personal belief. But when things are not really safe, we're in a kind of we are going about life very much from our unconscious programs. We're doing what we need. We're in kind of survival mode. But once we start to get a little bit safe and secure, I think the unconscious mind starts bringing up extra things that you haven't yet dealt with. So like, I don't know if you've ever experienced this. When my husband and I have much more closeness than usual. Once we feel really safe with each other again, maybe like if we sort of connect at a much deeper level, or if we have beautiful lovemaking or something, the next day or two, edginess comes up. There is this, and I've heard this as a sort of a principle. Be interesting to see how it relates in your own life. But, when you have this amazing closeness that comes up that allows you to breathe out and feel, oh, I'm really safe. Notice what happens after. Does the shit start to hit the fan? Do these little bits of unresolved issues come up into your consciousness? Because at some level, your body's saying, okay, this is cool. I'm safe. There's some extra bits I need to deal with. I'd forgotten about that. I'd parked them, in my unconscious mind. And then it starts to come up. And so I think this is what's going on. You're starting to feel calmer at home, stiller at home. Things are more comfortable, and also respectful. And then, something else is coming up to be looked at. A bit like, when you tidy your house, or maybe you're going through some decoration and you're decorating your hallway, looks beautiful. And then you start to look, at the corners or at the edge of one room and another, so you do the bit you can, but then by contrast, the bit you haven't done is coming into your awareness to be dealt with. So I think that's what's really going on. But again, I think some of this can be resolved by you being yourself, by you expressing yourself and coming back into that awareness of maybe why you're here, what your purpose is. Because as that comes forward, that's going to inform you about maybe what's missing between you and your partners. What don't they know about you? They know all the things that you've allowed them to see. But if you're rediscovering a deeper part of yourself, then I think this is maybe the missing piece. So I hope that's helpful to you, Libra, in the week ahead with the Mercury retrograde and also the new moon in Sagittarius. These, I think, are hopeful times. This is bringing you into a place of excitement about yourself. So enjoy it. So have a great week ahead. Enjoy all of those events. And if I can be of any help to you at all, then just get in touch. My details are below. You can always invite me to work with you. But yeah, have a good one and connect with you real soon. Bye for now. Hey there, Scorpio. So this is a forecast where I'm really going to be talking about Mercury retrograde. And also the new moon in Sagittarius. Mercury retrograde starts at 22 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius and is by the 15th of December will be right back to 6 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius. And then after he'll sort of move on his way again. Interesting that the new moon in Sagittarius is also happening in this area, in this kind of retrograde space. So the first thing that I really, I guess want to bring into your awareness for the week ahead and for the next couple of weeks, really, with this retrograde is this is a magical place right now. This is a place that's very potent and that is, I think, almost programmed for you to create some significant change in terms of your receivings, like what you're earning, what you're allowing into your experience and how safe you feel to do that. I think that's really your self-esteem. If you're feeling good in yourself and buoyant in yourself and confident in yourself, if you know what you're here to do, you feel that as a purpose, like you're on a mission. I think it's very easy to get into receivership, because you're being yourself. There's no pretense, you are absolutely, there's nothing to hide, so I think this is going to be revealing a lot about you, especially in terms of how you can draw more resource, more wealth, more accolades to you right now. This is also assisted by Mars, which is obviously one of your ruling planets, but Mars is going to be in a trine with the Sun before the new moon occurs, but they're still going to be within aspect of each other. So, Mars and the Sun together in a trine are absolutely bringing this sense of success and the confidence of your recent success and helping you really feel it so that you can start to work from that new place. It's very easy, I think, when you are doing well, if your self-esteem isn't quite as good as you'd like it to be, or maybe it needs to be, you can experience success, but not fully experience it. Like, people tell you how great you are, but you're not really receiving the full impact of it. So this week is here to, I think, really help you feel the immensity, the enormity of feedback that you get, that you really start to feel the brilliance in you. This is time for you to put your crown on for a minute, and actually feel like, oh yeah, I am appreciated. And, I'm going to accept that. I'm going to take that compliment. I'm going to sit with it and integrate it. So this is a great time, I think. Now, as Mercury is going retrograde, your thoughts have gone from the external and they're coming to the internal. They are helping you to really see anywhere in your programming that is holding you back from getting to the next level, or maybe getting to a few levels of experience and reach that you haven't yet got to. If you've got big plans, big financial plans, things that you would really love to do, dearly love to do, but they've always felt out of reach, then this Mercury retrograde, I think, can help you get your ideas about resources back on track, or actually on track. It might be on track for the first time. You might be right now countering a whole lifetime of negative information and belief systems about the potentials for you to earn and receive in terms of luck, in terms of how life is set up. So I really do feel that this is a reversal of any sort of negative programming that you have around your self-worth, which is big. It's a massive gift, really. Now, during this time, like I said, on the 1st of December, there's the new moon. So let me talk a bit more about the moon. In fact, if you wanted to know a lot more about all of these things, the moon in this week ahead, Mercury retrograde during this time, the new moon in Sagittarius, and also a day-by-day forecast. I've got 4 earlier sections in this video right at the start in part 1, where you can experience all of that. You can listen into the day-to-day, and so on and so forth. There are so many different forecasts within this video. But anyway, it's sort of in a quick overview, we're in the waning crescent phase right now. This is quite an internalized process, where we are coming into ourselves, we're listening to ourselves, especially for you, Scorpio. And I say you, and meaning me as well, because I've got Scorpio rising or ascendant. But the moon is coming into the quieter parts of our charts. The moon she's coming into this space of repose and recuperation, a place where we kind of go into our own secret little world, our own little unconscious and imaginative and psychic chatter. And I think it's really important that you take some time for yourself and journal, mind map, dream, meditate, walk, whatever is working for you to help you reconnect to your internal voice. Not necessarily your internal conscious voice, but what's really like maybe a layer underneath, or a couple of layers underneath, to a really still and observational voice that almost sounds a bit impersonal. Now, I don't know how you're going to do it, but like I said, this is in a very, very deep space of your chart that this moon is waning through. And then it comes into your first house in the sign of Scorpio, where it's particularly intense. So this is an intense, personal, slightly secretive, but very internalized week. And then as the moon comes into the sign of Sagittarius on Saturday the 30th, things start to release a little bit more, and then we've got the new moon on the 1st. So I think things start to change as the moon comes into Sagittarius. So if I was going to kind of pace this out, I would probably say that you're in this kind of intensity to really work out what's you and what's not. It's almost like the thing that just came into my mind is like you've got the sorting hat on, from Harry Potter. You've got the sorting hat on, and you're kind of like reviewing all these different things about yourself, and you're like, oh, that's not me anymore. That's not me. That's not me. But what it's really helping you to do is identify what is you, what really works with you. So just allow things to pass, allow things to drop from view, or just park them if you're not sure, but don't keep them in that active space of what you really are motivated by and enjoying. And I think the more you're approaching life from that perspective, the more things will come into view. One thing that I spoke about earlier is this amazing website called 750words.com, and it encourages you to just start typing and type and type and type and just write, and it's like a stream of consciousness. And what happens, a short way in, is things start to flow, and you might not quite know where they're flowing from, but this is a very internalized process, and I think that real deep levels are coming up and they're shifting, and it's all part of this kind of recovery of your purpose, this recovery of your self-worth, and really, really feeling that. Remember, Mars is supporting you on this process, and so some of the feedback or experiences you're getting from the output of how you are in the world. So if someone says, "Oh, I like it when you do this," that's feedback on the output of what you're doing. If someone's bringing you something as a gift, maybe a cup of tea or something, there is an output. Somebody is showing you gratitude. There are so many different things that are coming in, and it's important to notice what the outer world is gifting you with right now, because that's important intel. So yeah, as we're coming into the new moon in Sagittarius on the 1st of December, I think you'll have had quite a few different thoughts about yourself and what you're hoping to create for yourself in the coming times. And this is where the new moon in Sagittarius, as the seed point, if you kind of work this out for yourself as the new moon starts, I do believe it puts you onto this new track, where things start to grow from that. So yeah, I think this is a week of wearing your inner sorting hat, letting go of the things that aren't worthy of your new self-worth. So it's a week about worthiness, like releasing unworthiness and connecting to the things that help build the worth within you. And then you're coming into receivership. So it's kind of good, really. 28th of November then, that's when we've got an exact square between Venus and Chiron. Now, I just want to pay a bit of attention to this because, Venus, I think, she's a benefic, she's helping us to find greater flow. And she's been in this part of your chart, which I think really shows up as the communications that you're having around your community, the little meetings, the little journeys. Venus is taking you on a journey with other people. She's connecting to other people, not like people just in your career that get the output of it, but people local to you. This is very much about where you belong. And so, whilst you might favor maybe a slightly more formal and respectful approach, and possibly never let your guard down, that's kind of possible with this kind of Capricorn third house. You maybe aren't so relaxed out in your community. You know how to judge things, and you get things just right. It's quite measured, but there is this moment around the 28th when maybe you're feeling a little bit isolated, and maybe how you're being in your community isn't quite working for you in terms of your home. Maybe you're noticing what people are expecting from you and feeling very, very different in the way you're managing your life. So watch out for those mismatched values from the people around you and what you've got going on in your life. So it may make you feel a little bit isolated. You might feel a bit cut off because you realize the values that people around you are living with and working with, etc., just don't quite vibe. But remember, this is going to pass. I always think that as these like Venusian and Mercury based aspects come in, and also the sun and the moon, they move fairly fast. They're bringing something into our awareness, but they're not necessarily signaling something permanent. This is just you noticing your difference. And maybe that's what you do need to recognize in terms of your self-worth, is that how can you celebrate the way you are different in yourself and the way you don't fit in? Because that might be part of actually what your true value is you have like this knowledge of yourself, and you're not going to be swayed by public opinion necessarily. You are getting maybe firmer in your self, how you value yourself. So I hope that's helpful. I think really this Mercury retrograde and subsequent new moon is here to show you your true value, but also help you to value all of those sides of yourself, which, funnily enough, I've said, do not play into the sides, shift from polarity into unity. So, you maybe aren't judging some of your unique attributes and talents and skills and things. You might not be kind of labeling everything as good or bad, or it's just, is this relevant right now? And, as you're not so judging of yourself, you're coming into more unity with yourself. So I really like this. I think this is going to be helpful for all of us and really help us move forwards. I hope that's helpful to you. If I can be of any help, then, just get in touch. All of my details are below in terms of, if you wanted to work with me or discuss something. So have a great week ahead, and hopefully we'll catch up real soon. Bye for now. Hey there, Saggy. So this is a forecast taking you from Monday the 25th of November right the way through to Sunday the 1st of December. Now, there's a couple of big things happening this week in your sign, or our sign, because I am a Sagittarius, my son's there. We've got Mercury retrograde in our own sign going on, starting on the 26th of November. And it will be going all the way back from 22 degrees right the way through to 6 degrees. That's not until the 15th of December. But what does this mean? Well, this is what I'm going to be talking about in this forecast. So what does Mercury retrograde going through this part of our sign mean to us? Like, how are we going to use that? We've also got the new moon in Sagittarius at 9 degrees on the 1st of December. So that's also something that's playing into our experience of this week ahead. The new moons are known as, well, I think of them as seed points. They, currently, as we go into this week ahead, the moon is in a waning phase, which means it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And it really links into us letting go, releasing, tidying things up, getting clearer about who we are, and kind of shrinking the big possibility of life. So, often at the time of the full moon, everything gets big and overwhelming. And after that, we have to let go of things because we can't handle all of it. And also, it's much more fun, I think, to discern what we might be really for. So I really see that this week ahead for us is absolutely about making a choice. Isn't that a great way to start a week, is to think, right now, I am in my own choice. So yes, you are here, I am here, and we're about to make our own choices. Anyway, if you want to know loads about the Mercury retrograde, all the new moon in Sagittarius, including asteroids and Sabian symbols, and a much deeper look at it, then please do check out 2 earlier sections within this entire video, right in the first part. I also do a day-by-day forecast for all signs, which is absolutely useful, where I talk through the 25th, 26th, 27th, and so on and so forth. So this is really to give you that sort of the sort of cherry on top, where you get the sort of context of how that blends in with you as a person, as somebody with a Sagittarian coding. Now, I don't know if you've got your Sagittarius, as your rising sign, your ascendant, or your sun, maybe your moon even. Some people listen to their moon signs too. But suffice to say, there is something going on with your energy in terms of your identity. You see, this part of the chart, about Sagittarius is all about your direct experience of life, your body, your, like, how you appear to the world, your image, very much about the thing that makes you, you. And so that's why it's so exciting, because, Mercury retrograde, he's not happy in this sign, I have to say. Mercury in Sagittarius isn't the usual way that Mercury functions. Mercury is quite rational and outward facing, wants to look at little bits at a time. So he's always looking at small bits of the picture, and having a judgment about it. Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it black? Is it white? Is it up? Is it down? Whereas the sign of Sagittarius is about the big picture. the real big picture, the context, how we can free ourselves in the picture, how we can feel philosophical, how we can have a sense of humor, how we can feel confident, how we can feel the truth of the situation, feel the optimism of the situation. And of course, none of those are yes, no answers, are they? So, Mercury right now, the ability for us to think clearly is kind of taken off, off the agenda. Right now we're not meant to be thinking clearly. We're meant to be thinking in terms of the big picture, like our freedom, our truth, our optimism, our philosophical sense of what life is about. It's about the highest of big pictures. And right now it's internal, so we are thinking, how am I experiencing freedom right now as I am? How is my personality bringing in more freedom for me? How am I stopping freedom? This is all an internal look at yourself. And, the purpose of this, as Mercury goes retrograde, I think, is to give you a whole new idea of who you are being right now and who you want to be. And maybe this is really clearing away some of the false identities that you've picked up along the way. We pick up masks everywhere. Like we go from one job to another, or a relationship to a relationship. We might live in different countries. And everywhere we go, we are finding a new context or a new mask for ourselves. And, maybe you're going back right now and thinking, how does this mask fit? It's a bit tight, right? It's not really who I am. Well, who am I? I've kind of forgotten along the way. And so you're letting go of these identities, releasing the identities, so that, and hopefully, you might do this week. You might be able to get, to a significant part of your core, in the course of this week, if you're really, really applied to it. And there's nothing to say you have to rush. I think you can do this all year round, but right now the astrology is really sort of helping us focus on that. But, from the 1st of December in particular, there's this new beginning, this seed point in the sign of Sagittarius, in a very special place for you. And this could be where you start to say, okay, well, actually, I know which masks I'm dropping. All of them, in fact, because I've got to the core of who I am. Or you might bring some back. You might decide that some of your newer identities really do fit in with alignment. Maybe they're, I don't know, maybe you've got a core set of masks or something. But, what I really see is that you're moving forwards from this new point. Now, in the earlier chapter about the new moon in Sagittarius, the Sabian symbol, and there's 360 of those, but the Sabian symbol for 9 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius is talking about us coming into our talent, like finding our talent, being able to use our talent and see the opportunity of it. And it's talking about luck. And of course, I think luck comes in when we create a space of possibility and freedom for ourselves, because luck sometimes doesn't, luck happens because we're doing things usually out of the ordinary. Luck, I don't think, tends to happen when we're doing the same thing again and again and again and again, because nothing is changing in our experience. But how some people find themselves in the right place at the right time in just the right way? Well, that's because you're bringing the possibility of something new to come in. So yeah, I think you're clear, or we're clearing our masks and our expectations of ourselves. And then maybe we're taking some different actions because of our new thoughts. And of course, once we're taking our new actions, we may well find ourselves in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing in just the right way. And then it comes across as luck or opportunity. So yeah, I think this is an exciting time. This is a time when you can take yourself to a whole new different place. Now, we're supported by Mars as well. And Mars is going to go retrograde soon, but not for a couple of weeks, not for just over a week. I think it's happening next week, in the following forecast. But Mars currently in the sign of Leo is in a trine with the sun, and will be in a trine with the new moon. And, I think the Sun and Mars together are helping us to feel courage in ourselves, feel excited, feel like we're ready to take action. And it gives us a very strong sense of constitution. It gives us a strong sense of bounciness, like we've got the energy to do what it is that we would like to do. And I think it also is a nod and a wink to the Sagittarian sense of humor as well. It gives us that feeling of daring. Now, Mars is currently in this part of your chart, or our chart, to do with adventures, big thinking, bringing more of the outer world in. Actually, no, I'm going to change that. That's what's going on here, really. But it's encouraging us out into the outer world to go on an adventure. So, yeah, there is this, I think, great big impetus to help you realize your new standing, your new position, and I'm thinking of a swimming pool right now. Like, as I was thinking, where is it? Like when you're pushing yourself off from a swimming pool, or from the side of a swimming pool, you kind of get your purchase. Maybe you've got your feet on the wall and you push off from your feet and you fly. You kind of fly through the water. You glide through the water. This Mars and Sun trine is about giving us the right purchase and the right starting place, so we can move ahead, and we're gliding through the water without much resistance. And the resistance was all of our personas. So all those masks that you're dropping right now, that is the resistance that you're letting go of. So I think this is really quite helpful. And funnily enough, I did put, because I think this is something that's true for everyone at the moment, like, don't play into the sides. We're shifting from polarity into unity. Well, if you've got all these different masks, each of those masks is a different position, is a different side of you. And so as we're dropping them, we are coming back into our unity, which is our original place. What we were born to do, what we were born to be. So I think there is this re-emergence. I love the re-words with retrogrades, a re-emergence and a remembering, and a reconciliation of who we really are. So, excited about that. Now, obviously, our ruling planet is in the sign of Gemini right now, and he's also retrograde, poor old Jupiter. But again, we are learning internally once again. Jupiter is showing up as all of our pals, all of the people in our life who, might often be quite black and white, but now they're also quite shades of grey and seeing the bigger context and things. And they might have gone a bit quiet recently, and that's fine, because actually it's giving you the time to really focus on yourself. So great stuff. Now, the last thing I want to share, Venus is in a square with Chiron in this week ahead. Now, Venus, she's been really helping you get active in terms of what you want to earn, how to bring your earnings up quite substantially. And in this square to Chiron, she's maybe bringing up a sense of inadequacy in yourself, that maybe you're not quite good enough to do all the things that you say. Maybe you've over egged yourself. You've bitten off more than you can chew. You're feeling a little bit like, oh my God, now what? Now I'm going to have to prove myself. And you might be feeling a bit disconnected from it. The sooner you can come back into your allowance of being, the easier it's going to get. So if you are feeling overwhelmed and disconnected, remember that all of these things that you've set up came from a place of optimism and came from a place of hope. And if you can allow yourself just to believe, it's going to fall back into place. It will come in. And you might not understand exactly how it is kind of being set up in your life. You might not, maybe you don't understand your own process, however, I think it's really important to trust that the natural flow of how you work is going to come back into balance, and you will be able to do what it is that you've said you're going to do. All the things that you need to be able to find in yourself will come up, but they're not going to come up when you're doubting yourself. So go into the belief of it, go into the possibility of it, and know that at just the right time, in just the right way, and for just the right reasons. It might be that you're waiting for a bit of knowledge to drop, and when that knowledge comes in, boom, there it is. All of a sudden it makes sense, and you can go like the superhero that you are. So anyway, I'm going to leave that there, Sagittarius. Have a fantastic week ahead. Enjoy your Mercury retrograde, which obviously is on for a few weeks. Enjoy the start of the new moon energy, and let's see where you are in a week's time. Lots of love. Take care and catch up with you real soon. Bye for now. Hey there, Cappy. How you doing? So this is a Mercury retrograde reading and also a new moon reading. And it's also the week ahead, so I'm taking this forecast from the Monday, the 25th of November, right the way through to Sunday, the 1st of December, which is when we've got our new moon. So as we head into this week ahead, we have got the waning crescent moon. So the moon has been big recently and is now appearing to get smaller before our very eyes, where the darkness is coming up as a theme, and where we are needing to sleep more, rest more, and like nurture and look after ourselves more. It's probably also important to kind of get ready for bed or get ready for hibernation. So, if you think about what you would do if you were getting ready for sleep or some kind of rest and get into a still state, you might take off your clothes, you might clean your teeth, you might brush your hair and tie it back or something, or you might prepare the ground for this nourishing experience. And that's what I really see going on right now, because we've got Mercury retrograde going on in the 12th house of your experience and also the new moon in Sagittarius. This part of the chart is really imaginative, unconscious, still. That doesn't mean to say nothing's going on though, but it's mysterious. It's quite secretive. It's very, very private. It's a sleep time, really. I think of this place as the dematerialization of who we are. And historically around this time of year until just before Christmas, this is the time, when the sun is going through this part of your chart, when you are most feeling like you're a bit exhausted, a bit tired out, not really quite sure what's going on. And it's a time to rest. We all have it, every sign of the zodiac. This is your sleep time. And, around the time of the winter solstice, which is coming up, or the December solstice, if you're in the Southern hemisphere, sorry about that. But around, I think, the 22nd of December, you will be waking up again and coming back into your own. But for now, this is the rest part. Now, rest sounds like, or sleep or hibernation sounds like such a boring time or a time when nothing happens. But actually, that's when the real magic is happening. That's when, like when we're sleeping, for instance, that's when our resistance to healing, our resistance to our thoughts, the resistance to resting, like leaves us. If you think about it during the day, we might be thinking, oh yeah, I've got to relax. I've got to do this. I've got to do that, blah, 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 blah. You never give your body the time to recover and heal itself. And so what I think is going on, there's a major hoo-ha going on out there. Excuse me 1 second. I need to just check what's going on. There's sirens everywhere. 1 sec. Sorry for that disturbance. So yeah, there's a bit of a local fire going on, but it's all under control now. Now, here's the thing, this Mercury retrograde, a new moon in Sagittarius, is here to help you sleep and nourish yourself. So if you think, like, when we're in sleep, our body loses its resistance to healing. It loses its resistance to like letting go of all the things it doesn't need. Our digestive system can improve itself and clean and sort of get ready to empty itself. Everything is working, like our brain is being processed. All of the thoughts of the day are kind of neatly arranged, or who knows what's going on in our minds. But, it's like our bodies are making sense of what's been going on. And this is really what I see is going on for you, Capricorn. And it's really good timing, because what's going on is it's releasing so much, so that as we do come into the winter solstice, or the December solstice around the 22nd of December, you are absolutely clean and clear and raring to go to start your new year ahead, the sort of Capricorn year ahead that starts around that time. So I see that this is the natural flow of things, and it's here to help you get clearer. Now, Mercury retrograde is going, like, usually Mercury is seen as external thought and our interactions with the world, but now our interactions are going on internally. So it's a lot of internal chatter, a lot of reprogramming our thoughts, reprogramming our energy systems, really stopping and creating like this sort of cessation so that something new can come about. Now, this is quite important because, you know, I've heard back from quite a few Capricorns who said, yay, Pluto's finally left my first house. Damn, it's in my second, which is about, you know, my money and this, that, and the other. And so a lot of people, you know, who are, who've been through this like big change of Pluto going through the sign of Capricorn, you know, are, you know, maybe a bit exhausted from this and, now thinking, oh, so we've got the next challenge and we've got the next challenge. And sorry, it is a bit like that with astrology, you know, like the planets are moving on and on and on, and the stories in our charts are changing and our evolution is changing. But this is almost like, you know, like when you go on holiday and you get back home, and most people, when they get back from holiday, aren't feeling refreshed. They're actually feeling quite exhausted. And so when they get home, they need a day or two to come back into their normal life. I see that what's going on in this week ahead, in this quieter week ahead, is you coming back into your body. You're coming back into that sense of you. So yeah, there's a lot of internal thoughts. Now, what I would suggest if I was in your shoes is, you know, what technologies or techniques do you use to refresh, reimagine, and regenerate yourself? You know, like the ones that come to mind for me is like meditation, neuro-linguistic programming, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, subliminal techniques, because this is all taking place really in your in the imaginative and unconscious part of your brain. It's a part of your brain that and your experience that is working at the deepest of levels, that works with symbols, that works with the programs that you've got covering, you know, and running. So how can you reprogram yourself? And what if you could, what would you reprogram your mind to believe? So this is coming back to the real belief level within you. And of course, the sign of Sagittarius, one of the themes of it is to help you find freedom, help you connect into your truth, help you become a bit bouncier, a bit more optimistic, a bit looser, you know, to find the funniness and the humor in life, you know, to feel a bit more sort of like gentle with life. It also helps you get to the secret sacredness of life. You know, Sagittarius is quite faithful. You know, it has that faith, that feeling of belief that there is something greater out there. So I don't know what is going on for you in your life right now, Capricorn, but anywhere where you have beliefs about yourself that maybe aren't working, and anything that you do believe yourself to be, now is the time to start reprogramming it. And, you know, journaling might be good. You know, there's so many different modalities that can help us now. And there's also some very talented coaches and guides. And there's a gazillion podcasts out there, you know, where sort of all different minutiae of life and experience are spoken about in public, you know, so there's lots of different things that we can be inspired by. So if I was in your shoes right now in this week ahead, I think I would take time to immerse myself in all the things that are helping me to unravel the sort of the tightness that's come up in my life, and to release it, to get a refreshing new point of view, to get a refreshing new take on how you are. Now, the new moon in Sagittarius, I think, is reconnecting you to your intuition and your psychic awareness, and also that sense of knowing, that knowing of, yeah, I know where I am, I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm here to do. That sense that you maybe feel in your body. Now, what I would also say is, you know, over the course of the next month, you know, as the sun comes into the sign of Capricorn, you know, the focus will be on your physical body. Right now, it's on your mental and spiritual experience, you know, and as you're clearing those away, I really do truly believe that what is coming from there is the mind space to come back into your physical health. So that, like, the more you're clearing about yourself, the more you're clearing your dis-ease about different things that you've built up in yourself, the more you're clearing yourself to feel stronger in your body, when the sun goes into your own sign, which is not long away now. So like I said, just to kind of recap, you are in the phase of the rest, the zodiacal rest phase, the hibernation phase. And it is like coming back from a long holiday and taking a couple of days off of resting to get back to pace, getting back into your own space. There's another couple of things worth mentioning as well. There is a nod from, the sort of psychological things that exist between you and your family members, in particular, maybe your mum and dad, your people from your birth family and your ancestors. There is this sort of feel that you are taking a leap forwards, like one of the rites of passage, which I believe the 8th house is full of rites of passages of moving from one life to another. Like, for instance, after childhood comes puberty, and so on and so forth. So to me, it feels like you are leaping into a new part in your life, and taking an active role. Mars here is active. You're taking an active role at looking at the psychological sort of makeup of where you were and the new psychology that you need in this new life. So that's also playing into this. But the trine between Mars and the Sun is really helping you to feel confident that you have it right, that you have made a good assessment of the psychology that you're letting go of and the psychology that you're encouraging to come in. So if you can't, if you're not entirely sure where to focus yourself in terms of, like, if you were reprogramming your mind for success, what you might do is, say, well, what's going on with this new leap forwards that I'm doing? What skills would I need? You might do it in more of an outward way. I guess, it's a little bit like, I'm trying to think of a machine. Like, there's lots of, obviously we live in a world, with computers and machines for all sorts of different things. It's a bit like, let's say you're going for a drive and you know your destination, and you type into your sat nav, your navigation system, where you want to go, and it does everything for you. It works out lots of different routes. There might not be one sole route to get to where you want to go, but we often do program our machines to get us to the place that we go to. There's nothing wrong with, like, they are kind of like programs in their own right. And I think that's what's really going on for you right now, is that you're deciding the programs that you need for the next month or two and for the next year or two. And, what are you typing in or programming into your inner, into the way your mind is working. So I guess that's how I wanted you to be able to also understand it from. There's also Venus square Chiron. This is the last thing I really want to talk about. Chiron has been going through your 4th house for quite some time in the sign of Aries, and it will have touched on some of the insecurities that you might feel in your family and in at home, some of the old wounds, that may well have been reactivated. It often shows us the pain of relating. And Venus right now in your 1st house is quite helpful, because there's a sense that you are already starting a new phase, and there is a feeling that you are already starting to look a bit better, feel a bit more like yourself. And the moment you're starting to move forwards, it almost brings up the pain of leaving the family context, the context that it kind of keeps you in check. If you have a fear of overtaking the people that you're around, like moving away from them because, there is something rather brilliant in you coming up. I mean, I understand that thought. It's a very real fear, isn't it? The fear of leaving those that you love behind you. And yet, actually, there are other ways of seeing things, with people you're intimately connected with. If you're rising up, you might be rising them up with you. I think, it's really important to get the right people around you all the time, because wherever we are going, we're all influencing each other. So, anywhere where you're holding yourself back to stay with your collective crowd could actually hurt you, because you're not really following your path. And maybe that's also what Mars is representing here, that it is time to bravely step forwards. So I understand those feelings might be holding you back. And it's worth asking yourself, am I holding myself back needlessly? Through fear of not being good enough. And anywhere where you're sort of realizing that and you're ready to take the next move, this is the time to do it. So I hope that's helpful. There's a lot of different thoughts and things going on. Like I said, this is your most tired part of the year, the time of the year when you're most susceptible to changing your patterns. And also to resting and recuperating a little bit. Trust me, from December the 22nd, when the sun comes back into your sign, you will start to wake up again and feel a lot more refreshed. So this is just a stop, like a little rest. It's just a pit stop. It's not forever. It's just so you can catch your breath. Feel much better in yourself and get ready with the right resources to move forwards again. So there you go, Capricorn. I hope that's helpful. Lots and lots of love to you in the week ahead, and hopefully catch up with you real soon. Bye for now. Hey there, Aquarius. So how are you feeling right now? Are you feeling hopeful? Are you dreaming lots right now? This is a very hopeful and dreamy forecast for the week ahead, starting from Monday, the 25th of November, taking you right the way through to Sunday, the 1st of December. Now, in this week ahead, we've got Mercury going retrograde on the 26th. He'll go direct on the 15th of December. But in that time, he's going to move from the 22nd degree right the way through to the 6th. And then obviously we'll move forwards again. We've also got on the 1st of December, the new moon at 9 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius. Now, if you're wanting a deeper dive into the new moon specifically, or Mercury retrograde specifically, I have created 2 separate chapters earlier in this video, which give a lot more information, like loads more. Suffice to say, in this forecast, I'm giving you a very sort of Aquarian overview about how this is fitting into your life, but there's so much more information earlier in the show. The new moon in Sagittarius, however, one thing I do want to bring forward from the earlier show is its degree at 9 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius is linked to the Sabian symbol to do with emerging talent and opportunity and luck. So I'm going to be talking around that in this forecast. When we're starting this week, the moon is already in the waning phase of its cycle. And what that means is, the moon has been appearing to get smaller and smaller and smaller. So we're slowing down. We're coming into a more restful time of the month. We're wanting to relax, rejuvenate, not do too much. We're not wanting to stress ourselves out too much. We're wanting to really come back into ourselves. And there's a lot astrologically right now suggesting that we are coming back into ourselves. For instance, Mercury going retrograde, where our outward communication is coming inwards. We've also got Jupiter in Gemini retrograde. So where we're normally expanding outwards, we're now expanding inwards. And the new moon, which starts really when the moon appears to disappear. Obviously it doesn't, it's just completely in darkness. And then from that, a new moon phase starts, and we go around the cycle again. So in many ways, this week is really slowing us down and turning our communications, our talk, our expansions, our hopes, our dreams, our life, everything has this sort of inward focus. Now, obviously, I've mentioned this lots in recent times, and also, put out 3 videos about Pluto in Aquarius. That's the other big news as well. Pluto is finally in your sign. And I often think that, when things get going, when we're picking up on this new energy, it's quite tiring. Like when you start a new job, or you go to school for the first time, or you start a new term after having a break, you often need to rest. As you're acclimatizing to this new energy. I know that when I go to a new job, and I haven't worked for anyone like a big company for almost 20 years, no, 15 years now. So, but I know that when I do go and work for a big company, historically, I've needed to take it easy for a good couple of weeks. And so again, I think this is also going on. You know, we are taking our time. We're resting more so we can sleep and our body knows what to do. And all those kind of new thoughts and new experiences, they just get filed in the right places. So this is in many ways a dreamy and sleepy week. But there's a lot of emphasis on this part of your chart. And this part of your chart, I think of as a place of social connections, social contagion, global visions. I think of it as the house of co-creation because, you know, here you're creating for yourself and experiencing, how can you experience more joy for yourself? And here you're really co-creating. You're thinking, how can I create joy with the people around me? How can I experience joy with the people around me? How can I experience joy and love and connection with the world? So it's very big. You're co-creating. And so, you know, my question to you, first of all, is I wonder what Mercury retrograde is going to be doing in this part of your chart. So if we think about it, Mercury retrograde, our thoughts and feelings are going inward. So you might be asking yourself about the thoughts and feelings that you are holding about the people you create your life and your world with, the people you have fun with, the social connections you've got. So you might be asking yourself a lot of deep questions like, am I in the right group? Am I still enjoying myself with the people I'm hanging out with? Am I still growing from this experience? How are they growing? Because obviously if they're not growing, you may well, by association, kind of stop growing as well. You know, I'm always very clear that I want to have the most positive and exciting and inspired people and compassionate people around me. You know, and so, you know, if I feel like I'm connecting to people that are really not in a place of compassion and maybe not coming from a place of excitement and inspiration, I feel less inclined to put my energy in that space. And so I think you're going through quite a deep experience in terms of your social habits. I mentioned the sorting hat from Harry Potter in an earlier video, in an earlier forecast, and it's coming up again as an analogy. You know, like with Harry Potter in the very first film, whose name I've forgotten, is it? Oh, it doesn't matter, but you put the hat on, or the hat goes on Harry Potter, and he's been assigned to a particular tribe or class. You know, and you know, it's like right now with this Mercury retrograde, you're sorting out exactly where you need to be, like who are your tribe, and also what are you creating together. And if you're not really a tribal kind of socially connected person, you might find that you're creating with life. You know, you're not just creating on your own down here, you're creating with life itself. You know, so you might be in a very strong law of attraction phase where where you are absolutely dreaming into being how you want your life to look. And so I think Mercury retrograde is that period of sorting, and it's internal. You know, I don't think you're getting it from your friends. You can get it from what you're observing them doing, but the conversations inside are happening for you. You know, you're not necessarily having these conversations with the people around you. It's happening internally. Now, I get that there's a lot of support from your true loved ones, you know, the people who truly are around you, like your partner and your best friends. And maybe your lifelong friends that have known you for a long time. You know, Mars here is really showing them kind of rooting for you. And you may well have felt a little bit of dissonance from them, you know, from time to time. They've spoken up and said, these people are not good for you, or where did you get that idea from? You're really not being yourself. But right now I see that the Mars and Sun trine in this week ahead is quite helpful. And that's giving you confidence. You know, it feels like you have support. You know, there are some strong people that have your back. So I really feel like you're on a great journey right now. Something else, really talking about the sort of social aspects. You know, you've had Chiron going through this part of your chart for a long time, really showing how you feel insignificant or insecure within communities as a general kind of experience. Maybe there's something about friendships and communities, some insecurity that has come up probably in your childhood that you've not quite got a grip on. And maybe you're in a place of overachievement or people pleasing. I mean, both of those are survival strategies, you know, like people pleasing. It's like, I'm so nice, of course you're going to like me. Or overachieving, I'm so brilliant, of course you want to hang out with me. You know, like you're always proving yourself in one way or in another. So, you know, what's going on right now with Venus in the 12th house, it's kind of bringing up this feeling of, look, you know, let's look at this insecurity. I'm going to take you by your hand. It's there for a reason. You know, maybe some of the things you're creating with friends and some of your goals aren't quite in alignment with who you really are. And maybe that's why you're feeling insecure, because you're around the wrong people or you've been aligned in the wrong way. And so, yeah, this week ahead, I think, is really helpful. You know, the three very social houses for you, Aries, Scorpio, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, they're all full of people that want to relate to you, and all of the kinds of things that will happen with those relationships, and all the learning that goes ahead with it. I think in this Mercury retrograde period, you're learning about your style, and maybe how you've cast yourself away to be able to focus on the group. You've like cast away some of your real core truth, you know, like the thing that is really, really you. I really feel like you've locked that part of you away for some time. And so I think this is re-emerging. And that's the thing that I love about Mercury retrograde. We get to redo it all, re-envisage, revise, review, recreate, reimagine. All these words are perfect. They're just great. So you are remembering who you are, and recalibrating where you want to be going. And so by the time Mercury does go direct on the 15th of December, I think you're going to be a lot fresher. And, you know, you're going to reemerge with a new sense of who you are in a really beautiful way. Now, the new moon is taking place during this time, and it's supported by Mars. It's really encouraged by Mars. It's kind of helpful. It is in a very wide trine to Chiron as well. So I think what you're learning about your insecurities and what you're learning about your courage is part of the new set point of this new moon. So, you know, what I think is this new moon is helping you to bring yourself out fully. Now, one thing I didn't share right at the beginning, I don't think, is the Sabian symbol for this new moon at 9 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius is about talent and opportunity and luck. And of course, if you're shifting the people aspect of your life and how you feel about those people in your life, you're creating something new and fresh. You're creating a change in your energy. And sometimes, you know, we need some space from people for us to properly emerge. You know, we can sometimes be so much in the group that we almost don't exist, you know, like we are like part of an overall, it's almost like a uniform. Your talent and opportunity to, you know, opportunities coming from your talent, they're coming out from that space you create or from the reviews that you're doing. So be aware of that. You know, you may well find that your true talent hasn't come out as much because you've been slightly hidden. You've been wearing the mask of the group. So yeah, I think this is quite liberating. And of course, liberation, freedom, truth, philosophy, optimism are all Sagittarius themes. You know, you are coming back into a more joyful sense of you with a sense of humor. So keep it light, and it's great. This is just bringing you into a new awareness. Is there anything else I want to say or share? No, you know what? I think I'm done. I feel really quite like, yeah. Last thing then, okay, your ruling planets, Saturn and Uranus, and how they're sort of playing into things. You know, Saturn, he's in the second house. I guess there is a reminder that it's useful to keep an eye on your spendings, like all the money that's coming in, keep an eye on that, keep it kind of regulated as much as possible. You know, Saturn is in a square to the new moon, and in a square to Mercury retrograde. You know, I think Saturn does try to regulate all of our experiences, and sometimes that can also put us off you know, some of our deeper dives, because we think we're going to come back into this inner stern Saturn kind of character. But like, if you can see Saturn as it's just information, you know, yes, it's good to keep an eye on how you're receiving money. It's also good to keep an eye on how you're spending things. You know, Saturn is there, I think, to create the structure around what you're wanting your life to be like. He's not really there to punish you. Uranus in Taurus is interesting. You know, we are coming to we're not right at the end of the Uranus-Taurus journey, but we are starting to wrap things up. You know, there should be like new feelings in terms of security. You know, like Saturn here in the second house is absolutely about financial security. Uranus in the sign of Taurus, funnily enough, is about new routes to security, because like Taurus is absolutely about security. Taurians love security. So there's something really shifting in terms of how you see security, and maybe from you know, maybe separating from the group, getting a bit of space from the group, seeing yourself as a different person within the group with this Mercury retrograde and new moon in Sagittarius. Maybe that's going to give you a bit more courage to be yourself, which will in turn have a shifting effect on how secure you're feeling. It's interesting, these two aren't really taking such a prominent role in the week ahead. You know, Uranus was very important a couple of forecasts ago when we were talking about that extremely strong full moon that was absolutely in a conjunction with Uranus. I mean, that was super strong. So yeah, I think security is going to come back into view, but really right now it's more important to find yourself within the group and find your alignment and make your alignment independently before reconnecting with the group. It's about finding yourself, which of course is a Uranian theme, very much about your independence, very much about going to the beat of your own drum. So anyway, it kind of took an interesting twist and a turn at the end, but I hope this has been useful as a sort of exploration. Obviously, you know, it's early days with Pluto and Aquarius, but he is taking you on a deeper journey into independence and freedom and truth too. So it's definitely a theme. Anyway, have a great week ahead. Enjoy the retrograde and the new moon. If I can be of any help, then get in touch. But yeah, take it easy and hopefully connect with you real soon. Bye for now. Hey Pisces, how are you doing? So this is Mercury retrograde forecast and also a new moon forecast. And I'm looking at the week from Monday, the 25th of November, right the way through to Sunday, the 1st of December. These are interesting times, aren't they? I mean, lots of shifting. There's like so much shifting. And, you know, right now, Mercury is going retrograde up here in this very sort of public facing part of your chart, very much to do with your career, what you're known for, and how brilliant you are. And there's also this new moon in Sagittarius. I think this is a great time actually to really go to town with the whole experience of Mercury retrograde. You know, this could really move you quite significantly in terms of how people are seeing you as a professional and also as a grown-up in general. Before I get going though, I do want to just put a couple of thoughts out there. The first one is, you know, Mercury retrograde and the new moon in Sagittarius, they're both in this part of the chart, and I've spoken about them at length in separate chapters in the first part of this video. So if you want a deeper dive into each, and I recommend you do, given how important they are currently for you, you know, they're in the house of your career, your success, you know, your reputation, and how, like, you know, what your legacy is. I mean, this is a really important part of your chart. But the other thing is, I've also done a moon forecast earlier in this video and also a day-by-day forecast. So there's all of that available to you. This is the Pisces sort of side of it. And I'm going to try and like bring them all together. So, you know, as we start this week ahead, we're in the waning phase. So the moon is apparently or appearing to get smaller and smaller and smaller. I really see this as a time when we're letting go, we're shedding our skins, we are releasing what's not needed, what's not part of us anymore. We're really I see it as quite a dreaminess, like, as you go to sleep, you close your eyes, and then like the grip that you have on reality, or the grip that reality has on you, eases off because you've just shut down to it. So I see this kind of shutting down, shutting out of the outer world and really going inside. And as we go through the week, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. I think the 28th to the 30th, that's, I think, Thursday to Saturday, when the moon, the waning moon, is in the sign of Scorpio, I think that gets really deep and personal and intense, for some really intense inquiry about your life. And then later on the 30th, Saturday the 30th, as the moon goes into the sign of Sagittarius, where the sun already is and where Mercury already is, I think things then come up a little bit. There's a sort of energy of hopefulness, an energy of optimism, an energy of kind of, let's do this. So, what I wonder is, if during this week, if you're on this kind of shamanic journey, it's like you're in a vision quest in this week ahead. So, I really see that, yes, shamanic journey, a vision quest, you've cast yourself out of the way of everyone else so that you can really start to pick up on the symbols of life and what feels right for you. Now, symbols, I think, are important. The moon is going through a very important part of your chart, like through this part, in the sign of Libra, where you're really sort of digging down to your inner psychology, and then into this part of the big adventure, but from a very sort of steamy and intense point of view, the Scorpio point of view. You could bring up some real depth in these explorations. So anything you can do right now to sort of journal, meditate, whatever your process is, there is a very strong feeling of kind of being moved by the symbols, moved by the esoteric or ancient wisdom that can come forwards for you. I'm feeling quite spacey just even considering this, and it's almost like you're going really deeply unconscious and kind of separate from everything. So as the moon comes into the sign of Sagittarius, all of a sudden there's this kind of waking up, there's this realization. So I really, as I'm sensing into this, I just think from the 30th, it's like back in the room. It's like 3, 2, 1, eyes open, fully awake, fully conscious. Here you are here right now, and just in time for that new moon to put in a seed point. So if I was in your shoes, and my moon's in Pisces, so I do consider I have a strong Pisces energetic about me. What I'll be doing, I think, is asking myself some really sort of deep questions about my purpose and my legacy. What am I here to do in this world? And if I could work my purpose and be my purpose and reach out as far as I'm meant to reach out, what might that look like? And these might be just the only questions you need to ask. You might not need to ask anything else. And then just kind of go into that sort of dream process in the way that works for you. Notice the symbols, notice what symbols life is bringing up for you, like little snippets of conversation, songs that you hear in your day to day. Anything that is coming up is part of the inner communication. And so as you're coming to the end of the week, Saturday, Sunday of next weekend, it starts to come together quite quickly. And then you've got the time of the new moon, and boom, there it is. There's this seed point, this idea of what you're sowing. You're putting your little Sagittarius seed in the ground, like bedding it in, watering it, maybe doing a little Reiki blessing as well. And then, over the next few days, like few hours, few days, few weeks, this new plant, this new side to you is coming forwards. Now, obviously, Mercury retrograde is going to be adding into that. Mercury retrograde is, I think, encouraging you to take all of the information about your career so far and your reach, all of your clients, the collective feedback, the collective sense of reputation and gratitude and all of that jazz, and then slowly bring it back in and analyze it and get a feel for it. You might want to ask yourself, how does this feedback relate to me? Am I really the person that everybody thinks I am? Does this feel like me? Does this feel like an accurate part of my process or an inaccurate part of my process? I really think there's some deep stuff coming from here. Of course, the closer you are to being yourself, I think the more easy it is for your true expression to come out. And expression is a big one, because if you look at the Sabian symbol for 9 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius, which is where the new moon is taking place, the Sabian symbol for that is talking about unlocking your talent and finding hidden opportunities and bringing forth luck. And of course, if you've created space and you're doing things a bit differently because you're seeing things differently, all of a sudden new things can come forwards. You know, when you're living your life and doing everything in your same routined way every single day, every single week, every single month, there's no room for anything new. So again, there's this idea of a big clearing to get you ready for this new inspiration, this new space, this new opportunity. And of course, there's nothing luckier, I think, than a Pisces or a Sagittarian, you know, these Jupiter ruled signs, you know, like when you're in the right place at the right time, boy, does it just start to happen. And so I think this is a really sort of deep and personal journey you're on right now to find where you need to put yourself. Now, of course, Jupiter's important. He's, you know, one of your ruling planets. And currently he's residing down here in this 4th house part of your chart in opposition to Mercury retrograde. Jupiter is also retrograde. You know, and I spoke about Mercury and Jupiter in opposition last week in the forecast. So check that out. It's still ongoing. It's worth having a look if that's of interest. But Jupiter retrograde, I think, is helping you expand internally. You know, realize how you want to expand in terms of your safety, in terms of your home. What is Jupiter bringing you right now? I mean, maybe you're expanding more intellectually at home, because sort of Gemini is the sign that it's going through. So there is something about the intellect and sharing of ideas. Maybe there's a more sharing of ideas in your home. I don't know. And maybe that's helping you to expand. But you know, there is an expansion going on in a very private part of your life. And so how can you continue your quiet expansion whilst also refocusing your external expansion in your career? So this is what is going on right now is, I think, helping you find yourself in the right position. You know, it's just a question of positioning and timing, and the timing's right. You know, to me, it just feels like you're not ready for a launch just yet, but you're just positioning yourself. It's like all of the information that you need to know is coming up right now, and you're currently in the phase of sorting through that information and seeing what's relevant, what you're going to keep and what you're going to toss. So yeah, this is the word that just came up is the becoming. You know, I think I used the word quickening last week quite a lot in the forecast. There was a quickening, and I think right now there is a becoming. You are things have moved quickly and information is coming quickly, and now that is translating into a becoming for you. I don't know how that sorry, I'm losing my voice. I don't know how that feels for you. How does that land? What's adding into this as well? Excuse me. You know, with Mars here in this part of your chart, is you're getting your life right. You're getting your life back into shape. It feels very much like you have created a lot of the support structures around you that you would need to be able to launch off again in a reviewed new direction in terms of your career and your output. But your life is supporting you, and that is giving you confidence. So again, timing is just absolutely perfect. Your other ruling planet, Neptune, I mean, it's been in the 1st house for a long time, really, really long time. And so you have been on quite an organic journey of wondering who you are. I mean, during this time, you would have realized so many different things about you, tried on lots of different hats, tried on lots of different personas. and maybe got yourself a bit confused in the process. But I think one of the things you realize about yourself is that you could be anyone to anything at any time, which I think now is starting to make sense. You know, it's almost like you've been becoming something only to realize it's not you. So you've been able to drop more things away from your persona than most other people. And right now it's standing you in good stead, because this whole process of becoming, like, you are actually really becoming who you're meant to be. I also note that Neptune is at the end of his journey in the sign of Pisces. He's not moving over to Aries just yet, but by March of next year, he will be. That sounds like a long way, a long way off, but it's really not. You know, right now, Neptune is just kind of double checking if you've recognized all the changes you've been through and noticed all the personas you've taken on. And he's kind of giving you a chance to kind of like feel into it and learn a bit more, you know. So again, I really think you're in a place of choice and choosing who you're becoming. It's like so much has been stripped away from you, and in this place of space, you are really like stripped back to who you were meant to be, like just getting you to your core. So again, this is really, really deep work that you're going in. So again, what I said about the shamanic journey or the vision quest seems so much more true, you know. So yeah, if I had like say three kindly pieces of advices that I would leave you with, it's go inside, go deeper, and not be afraid of who you discover yourself to be, because all of that is part of your onward journey. And I think this is an exciting time for you, Pisces. So have a great week. I really am excited about what's going on for you. I'd love to hear how things go. If I can be of any help, get in touch. But hopefully I'll catch you another time real soon. Lots of love. So there you go. They're the forecasts for the week ahead. And also in terms of Mercury retrograde and the new moon in Sagittarius. It's been an interesting one. Some of these forecasts I found really easy and organic, and other ones I've slightly frozen in, which is unlike me. I guess I'm going to have to trust myself a bit more and be more open with the process. I really love the Sabian symbol of the new moon, you know, very much about your inner talent and your opportunity. And what really strikes me is last week in the forecast, I kept saying it was a quickening. It felt like there was a quickening going on, you know, that things were moving so fast and in quite an overwhelming, overstimulating way that it was leading us into a state of confusion, but things were moving fast. What I really get from this particular period in time is that there is this blank slate. So yes, there's been a clearing, like a quickening to speed things up. And right now we are dropping away personas, one after the other, after the other, after the other. It's like, it's all just dropping from view. Really, really helpful. It's this massive discernment, but it's not even an active discernment. It's just what's not right, what's not felt inside us is just clearing. And so the word that really I'm really feeling into is the becoming. So not the quickening. We are coming into a place of becoming, you know, this like stillness from which, you know, as we breathe and move forwards, it's like we are just becoming. It's like we're standing up and taking a step and becoming us without all these extra masks around us. Feels really intense. And maybe that's why I've just struggled with it a little bit this week. Yeah, it feels like really, really intense times, and I'm very, very excited about it. In this last week, I've been on a series of shamanic journeys with Whitney Mullings, who runs these amazing shamanic interventions. And so, yeah, I've been on these 4 shamanic journeys in this last period. And yeah, it's been interesting. I've been peeling back the layers myself. And so I think there's a lot going on for all of us right now. If you really feel like you're on a mission, if you really feel like you're on some kind of cosmic purpose, I really think that life is I think we all have the choice to step into our purpose right now. I really don't think anything's holding us back. Anything that appears to be holding us back is what we're resistant to letting go of. Really, we're coming into times of more renewed purpose. So yeah, just a few sort of free thoughts there. Hope that was helpful. Hope to connect with you another time. Thanks so much for watching and for joining me on this journey. Love you loads and hope to connect with you real soon. Bye for now.